But the reality is that these people are rallying today not because Trump is at church singing choir songs.
Well, I don't need a choir boy up there. I need a winner.
Well, a winner by what means and who expense. And who expense. Who is our
Americans.
But do you realize that there's people that don't believe and think like you?
Yeah, and I want them to have the right to not think like me.
But what has to happen? The laws have to take effect and be enforced.
And that's probably why I get mad about it, because I'm like, okay, I don't think a subset of people is less than any other subset of people. And so therefore, I don't think that we have to do extra where they should, everybody should have to do the same amount.
I sense how genuine you are with what you believe. Right. But it highlights the gross misunderstanding of DEI and how it helps with certain rights that come with because you're a race. Now,
well, and let me ask you that. What can I do that you can't as a white guy?
Hey, what's going on? It's Joe Teel, and this is another episode of the Joe Teel podcast. I'm so excited today. I've had both of these guys as guests before, separately, and now we're here today for the big debate. I'm calling it less of a debate, more of an exchange of ideas, but it's going to be fun. I've got my boy Zach Rateliff here.
Hey, man, thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, yeah. Gerod Ware, what's going on, man?
The pleasure's mine. Appreciate you having me, man.
I learned so much from talking to both of y'all back to back. I feel like a lot of people find themselves in camps or leaning more one way or the other. And it's very interesting to have deep conversations with people from two different camps thinking about the same thing. You do that back and forth. Neither one of y'all said had me sitting here like, oh, no, I ain't with that.
Right.
So everybody's making sense. And I think that's important to think about because things are so complicated.
Yeah.
And so when we do this, we do something like this, we get to really explore these complicated things. They're not simple. It's not cut and dry. There's different angles to it. But maybe if we work together, we can kind of get to that sweet spot.
Yeah, that's good. And if I remember right, you didn't decide to do this until me and you had the conversation.
Right.
You was like, man, this was good. You had a good conversation with Zach. Right. It was like, man, we need to get on here together.
Yeah, I was thinking towards the end of his episode, I was like, dude, gotta have a sit down.
Right. Yeah, let's throw it up there. Well, that's the thing. We're not going to agree on everything. We're not going to disagree on everything. But we just have to understand as people, there are other powers at play that want us to disagree so they can manipulate us and can control us.
That's a good
Would you
point.
agree?
Yeah. And I think coming to that understanding, it's a challenge, right? Because we want to be right. And by proxy, that means we definitely don't want to be wrong. Mm-hmm. Right? That means you got to submit to something greater than self. And, that's weakness. So now you mean to tell me everything that I've been standing on and been screaming at the top of my lungs might not be right? Like that could be humbling beyond what most people even want to experience.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. So today we're going to hit a couple topics. We're going to go back and forth. It's going to be real fun, respectful. I have faith in everybody here. It would be good for the views if somebody slammed the microphone and walked out, but I don't see that happening.
Hey, we can leave like that if we're going.
Hey, just do this. I know.
Yeah, we got a signal.
Boom, right there.
Hey, we're already down. We're already down one.
I told you I could do it, man.
Already throwing stuff.
Yeah. There we go. I'll edit it. There we go. I got it. Okay. Yeah. That's cool.
See, I could do it, man.
Yeah.
There's the action you were all looking for.
Shaking it up.
Yeah. So I think let's start where we agree at. And I would say I'll go this way first. What just off of, we sat in here for a while because I was having technical difficulties. But just off of what you can guess, where do you think are points you more than likely agree at?
That a conversation is needed. You can debate things all day long, but one thing you learn through, you was in the military, I don't know your adult education or advanced education, but they teach you a lot. Like, the old saying, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you can listen more and talk less. Like, it's all one of those old sayings, but it's some truth to that. And the thing is, you listen to understand. And I think we all can agree, like, we need to understand more.
Yeah.
And whether we agree about the point, we can come with that later. But at least if I can agree, if I can understand what you're talking about, then I can, in a more educated manner, just have the ongoing discussion. But sometimes people don't even understand what the point is, and you end up arguing points that's not even the original point that came up. So I think, again, we can agree that we need to understand each other.
Yeah,
I like that. What do you think?
I think that's dead on. We get along here, you know. Even though it's probably graduated from the same high school, we can find a lot of things where we can connect to build that bridge to, okay, we maybe culturally we're different. Obviously, we're different races, but all that can come together. And all right, we both came up to the same school, same community, you know, and then we can build that and make that come in and say, all right, here's what we can agree on. Why do we see it differently? How have our influences been something different? And then we can be understood. Like you said, the 2 ears, 1 mouth thing, that's exactly right. And it's hard to put yourself away. And that's what you were saying earlier. Yeah. It's hard to put yourself away and just listen. Most people are hearing you to think of their next response.
Right.
Instead of hearing you to be like, oh, okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
So understanding. Yeah. That's what we're here for today.
Yeah. One of the reasons.
Yeah.
And we're going to throw some stuff so we get some views.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's that aspect. So why don't we hit the ground running hot? Why don't we talk about DEI to get it going today?
Okay.
Because that's a big issue.
Yeah,
and there's certainly different views on it. And I know this one's important to you. And so let's start off with you. What is your stance on it? How do you feel about it?
Okay. Man, I like starting with that because you definitely highlight one of the sticking points. Like, why are we so divided? Mm-hmm. And I'll start off by saying that it's intentional. You said earlier that the powers that be are pitting each other against each other, and they're using DEI. So just to state the obvious, you know, they say one of the original sins of this nation is slavery. So it's been years, decades, and if not centuries, you know, not centuries of course, but decades trying to right the wrongs of slavery. And part of that was, you know, affirmative action. There was DEI programs, equality and equity and inclusion, other things to try to, you know, just try to right just the wrongs of the past. And now you see some of them systematically being dismantled, you know. And for me, it's programs that I know that really worked. I benefited from DEI. And it wasn't that I was not qualified. It was like I had to be given an opportunity to experience, if you will, other opportunities for other professions to come visit the inner city, you know, and give me an opportunity just to know and learn what's out there so that I don't have to be just a rapper or an athlete,
right?
You know, so DEI works. And again, it's not, you know, like it's been made to sound like you're giving unqualified people an opportunity because of their skin color. And that's one of the furthest things from the truth out there.
What do you think about that?
So and I'm sure everybody knows what it means, but it's diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yeah.
I'm for a diverse train of thought. I'm for a diverse workplace. I'm for diverse in all this. Equity, I have a problem with. We can get to that here in a little bit. I believe in equality, but not equity, because that's two different meanings.
Of course.
So when I hear DEI, what I think is I don't believe any one group of people is subpar to any other group of people. So I don't believe because you're yellow, purple, green, that you're not equal to somebody's brown, black, white. So I don't want to I don't think anybody needs it tilted in their favor because, oh, your scores don't have to be as high because you're not as smart as someone else. And so I don't believe if we're all created, and I have a Christian view, and if we're all created in the eyes of God in his image, I shouldn't say, oh, because you're this race, you don't have to do as well on this test or on this matrix because we're worried you can't hit the score. I don't believe that. I think if you're white, you can hit the score, and if you're black, you can hit the score. And so when I get into the DEI stuff, some people are like, you for DEI? No, I'm for equality. I'm for being diverse, and whoever's the best at whatever it is, you know, if you're going to be a professional egg thrower, the best guy gets the job. But I think everybody should have the same standards to meet. And so that's where I get in on DEI is, okay, I can go with you. And I mean, And I graduated school in 2004. I've never known segregation, right? It wasn't a part of my life. Segregation bill started in the 50s and then ran all the way into the mid 70s. No class I was ever in was segregated, right? So, no, my football teams, everything I've grown up, one of my best friends who we were talking about earlier, I've been part of the multi-race generation. And so, that's probably why I get mad about it, because I'm like, okay, I don't think a subset of people is less than any other subset of people. And so therefore, I don't think that we have to do extra, or everybody should have to do the same amount.
Okay. What do you think about that?
So he really, and I sense how genuine you are with what you believe,
Right.
but it highlights the gross misunderstanding of DEI and how it helps. So inequity is not saying that someone gets to do less. And that's why I made sure to start off with saying like, hey, I have to come to and do, if it's a test score, let's use your example. The test scores don't change. The requirements do not change.
Right.
It is inequities addressed like what's keeping you. Let's talk about the inner city schools. You go to an inner city school and just talk about the area I live in Dallas now. There's some of the more underdeveloped, neglected schools out there. You got kids coming to schools with mold, overcrowded classrooms, underpaid, underqualified teachers, right? Then you go to the suburbs, Frisco, Little Elm, Plano. There's some of the best schools out there because the income is different.
Right.
The classrooms are smaller. The money that they're pumping into the inner city, to the suburbs, into the schools is different. And it shows. Now you got a kid there that don't have to worry about mold, overcrowded classrooms, or they don't have to worry about their meal. Like, I got to eat at school because when I go home, I don't get to eat. So inequities deal with those things that bring up them to a level playing field. I don't have to worry about overcrowded classroom, Chromebooks or outdated textbooks, all the things that you do to give them a fair chance. So inequities, again, it is different from inequality, but it's not saying that I have to do less to get to the same opportunity. It's understanding that the powers that be understand that so that they can do something to say, like, you know what, this category over here does have it harder or different because of these situations. Now let's bring them up so they don't have to worry about them. So now they can solely focus on, in your example, their scores and their education. So that's what inequity addresses.
So I've got a few different thoughts on that, and I can agree with you, right, on some of that. Let me define it,
okay,
and then let me give my thoughts, because I want people to have good schools. I want people to. So and I got this from Grok. So equity and equality, because I've asked for the definition of both. Equity and equality are related concepts, but differ in their approach and intent. Equality means treating everyone the same, providing identical resources, which is what you're asking for, right? Identical resources, identical class, right? And I agree with that. We need the same funding in the inner schools. We need the same. So that would be equality, providing the identical resources, opportunities, and treatment regardless of individual circumstances. So I'm for that. I'm for. Yes, everybody should have. If you're giving MacBooks over here, you should give MacBooks over here. If you got a clean classroom over here, you should have a clean classroom over here. If you have 25 students over here, don't have 50 in this classroom. So I want all that to be equal. So and that's still in the equality. And so regardless of circumstances, so it doesn't matter your socioeconomic background. You should get that. It assumes everyone now, and this is the thing. And this is what you're saying. It does assume everyone starts from the same place and needs the same support. So that's where the differentiation comes in. Giving everyone the example is giving every student the same textbook. But for us in today's world, it'd be giving everyone whatever the computer that they're giving out in the schools are, or whatever that is. Now, the definition of equity means recognizing differences in needs, circumstances, and starting points. And this is what you were saying, somewhat, not exactly, but somewhat. Providing tailored support to achieve fairness. Okay, I'm for that. However, then it says, or equal outcomes. I'm not for equal outcomes based off of your situation. I'm for everyone having the same materials, the same chance, the same cleanliness, mold-free school, same funding, same whatever. But, like Joe, let's say, and I don't know, Joe, I'm just using you as an example. Let's say Joe hits it 80 hours a week, lives lean, saves his money, bankrolls it, becomes a millionaire. But he's doing that in a shitty job, right? But he doesn't care. He's just grinding and goes and makes it. Then if he started out here and someone else started out here and maybe they work 35 hours a week. Solid job, but they never try that hard. They spend their money as they go and then they just kind of do their thing, but they never achieve the success that Joe achieves. I don't think we should bring them equity to bring them equal. I think, and that's with that being the definition of equity. Now, I think we should have equality in chances, equality in where we are, equality in opportunity.
Yeah.
And nobody should be stopping them. Yeah. But I don't want to diminish his effort through equity.
Yeah, I think you're bringing in a point that's not even part of the discussion, or it shouldn't be.
Right.
The quote unquote experts in the field don't make the argument that you're making.
No,
and I'm saying it because that's not even part of the discussion of what defines equity. So let's just say everybody.
That is the definition of equity.
Well, so now you got to get in the weeds and unpack it. So
right.
We go to different schools.
Yeah.
You get a Chromebook, I get a Chromebook.
Right.
Just say, for the sake of argument, I'm not saying that this is your situation. Right. You come in a 2-parent household and you grew up with iPads and computers and high-speed internet. Well, I didn't. So now when you give me my MacBook or my iPad, I'm lost.
Right.
Equity is going to address that. It's going to give me the training, the extra resources so that I can come up to speed. So now that I can have the level playing field, because guess what? We still got the same requirements for education. I got to go to school so many days, make so many passing grades, and be advanced to the next grade. Mm-hmm. But if I come in, never have even touched an iPad, I can't even turn it on, don't even know how to sign it in, and like this stuff matters. And it might seem like small, insignificant issue,
it's a big deal.
It really is. So I'm using something that I think that's at a real ground level that we can say like, oh, wow, I see how someone in this situation can be at a disadvantage because of no fault of their own. It's just a real life issue that they're dealing with.
Well, can I ask you this?
Yeah, real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
So some municipalities figured this out years ago. So they knew that in the inner city, they didn't have high-speed internet. Mm-hmm. They were still using the old dial-up, DSL, or even before DSL. So they started putting Wi-Fi, installing Wi-Fi on traffic lights, other points throughout the city, the public libraries, the school, all these, so people could say like, hey, it might not be in your home and it might not be the best situation, but now you can go in and have Wi-Fi so you can do your homework in the evening. Like those are things that they're doing to address the inequities. Yes, equal is like, yes, you can go to school and you can learn. But the inequity is like, hey, I don't have high-speed internet. I never use the iPad. I need a tutor. It's all those other things that they're addressing to make things more equitable. That's the difference.
Right. So I'm okay with having, once again, equality and opportunity in that. And now, as far as the schools, let's say that. That's why, for me, I was a big proponent of and I don't like the one they passed. It really didn't do anything, but the school voucher program. If you're in the inner city, you take your money. Hey, I want to go to Frisco. I want to go to wherever, and I want to give my money there so that I can use these resources. And now there's two different trains of thought of that. If you pull that money out of that school, it makes that school worse. Or there's a thought that they can't get to that school or whatever. But I want to be able to take my money and go to a school that does provide these resources. But once again, I think we get back to the equity. Through my career of managing multiple banks and managing, rent houses and rent properties and stuff like that. Usually, what is it? 88% of the country now has access to high-speed internet, especially in metropolitan areas. And then I never, most people did their banking on I'm talking about people that were dependent on one source incomes from the government that were probably the lowest of the low end in our country. My customers, they could come in and I could walk them through the app on their phone. They all had the app. And so while that is a talking point, I don't, and I'm not saying there aren't some of those people, However, en masse, I don't think that equates to equity, because the definition of equity is the outcome. Now, if you want it to be equal in where you can get or what you have to get there, let's work on what programs we can do, how we can improve, whatever, to make the start point better. But equity's definition is getting everybody to the same outcome.
No, but in goes flux, out comes flux. My thing is, whatever I put in is going to determine what comes out, right? So my point is, if I'm just going in uneducated, ignorant to something, and somebody else goes in educated and totally not ignorant to something, they're at an advantage. So now what the government is saying, that we got these requirements, and let's start here even to talk about the mindset of the U.S. is, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
What they learn beyond that, there are other things that are factors that influence this pursuit. Mm-hmm. Again, so there's this thing we talked about last time called empathy. Mm-hmm. It's knowing, even though I'm not in that situation, I could see how that situation can affect you. And my point is, even though I haven't been in it, and I'm hearing you push back on the equity part or the inequity piece, but at the same time agreeing with some of the points I'm making. Right. And I'm wondering what the disconnect is. And I think partly is because sometimes if we haven't experienced it ourselves, that it's a challenge trying to get into the shoes of somebody else and understand it from that standpoint. We all look at everything that we look through our experiences, how we were raised, our religious standpoint, socioeconomic circumstances. I told you before, I think when I went to boot camp, met some white guys from Idaho. First time they seen some black people, and it wasn't that they were racist or anything, but they was totally in the dark about what some of the challenges. And I was like, they was like, man, were you in the gang? And I was like, what? But it was like, okay.
Right.
You're like, man, I really don't know, man. That's like all I've seen. I'm like, okay. I was like, yeah, I was, He was like, oh, have you ever seen people die? I'm like, yeah. And, but later on, I was able to, just really bring everything into perspective. Like he was genuinely curious about it.
Yeah.
And stuff that he was like, wow, you seen drugs. Oh, you seen the gangs. Oh, you seen, gangs and fights and all of that. And I'm just like, for me, I'm just like, welcome to Texarkana,
Yeah.
But so my point is that if you can be in a certain situation and what you've experienced shapes how you see stuff, and the other person may not see it, but he asks questions to understand so that we can be in, more of an understanding like what each other needs. Now, so the equity piece, again, it seems like we're agreeing that at some point, but for whatever reason, you hadn't totally bought in, which is your prerogative.
Right.
My point is that what I didn't have, or even what you didn't have, when it comes to us playing or starting at the same point, that determines if we are at the same level starting point. Now, that don't mean the outcome is affecting the outcome necessarily. Right. Well, but is it fair if I've never touched the iPad, never been trained on it, but our requirements or the output is the same?
Well, I've got two different thoughts on that.
Okay.
And so...
But first, could you answer that question, though? Is that fair?
Yeah. Well, it depends on your upbringing and what your parents drove as importance.
Well, regardless, if I said I didn't get it, is it? If I say I didn't get it,
there are choices. There are choices in the family dynamic, maybe
for a 5-year-old.
Why didn't you? Yeah, absolutely. And I'll get there. So, just you touched on my background. I'll give it to you just so you know. I was born 10 days before my dad's 19th birthday. Grew up in a single family home, the poorest of poor. I remember, stories growing up of, dad went to the office to get food stamps because we didn't have any food, and they would, and for whatever reason, we didn't qualify because he was a single dad with all the things, but we couldn't get us food stamps. So I watched him build and work from, basically two kids, right, growing together and just growing up for a lot of my life behind, I was joking with somebody the other day. I said, man, these kids don't even have to go to Payless anymore because they're in the Payless, get those uncomfortable shoes,
Those pro wings, man.
Yeah. Those shoes that hurt your feet, but you're just glad to have some new shoes. And so that's my background is that's why when I say, I don't want equity because I don't want you to take from what somebody else built. I've watched it built from nothing. And then
you don't want to take away from someone else built.
Right, because the definition, once again, of equity is leveling the outcome. And so it says for equal outcomes is when
it said leveling the outcome?
Yeah, equal outcomes is the definition of equity.
I mean, it literally says leveling the outcome to
and you can grok it. I mean,
no, I'm asking, I just want I trust what you're saying. I'm just trying to understand the definition to the fullest. And you're looking at what?
Grok. I said, what's the difference between equality and equity?
Yeah.
And so, and then it does say also to level the disparities, to level the playing field.
Yes.
And to achieve fairness or equal outcomes.
So do you think the playing field could be different?
Well,
to the unending, nothing to your fault or my fault, or sometimes the playing field is different.
Well, so
but the requirements is the same.
Right. Well, so here's where I was going to get back to the 5-year-old. Do I want all 5-year-olds to succeed? Yes. Do I believe we should have programs to help that if somebody's failing? Yes. Do I want equity, like failing as a parent or whatever? But when you're a parent, and so this is where it's going to be somewhat of a cultural divide with certain people. I think the government came in at some point, and it would have been mid-60s, and tried to insert themselves. Because like we talked about before, they've done a good job of dividing the camps so that we're all against each other. And we agreed on that. The government has done a good job of saying, let us be your provider. Let us do this. Well, then when they do that, okay, well, I don't have this. The government needs to give it to me. But for me, I grew up poor. It was always important to my dad that I had to read so many books a week. No matter what. Now, we didn't have all the money to go do that. So the same with your kid. Are you putting an emphasis on, hey, you got that MacBook from school. Have you done your lesson on it? Even if you've never touched one before, have you done your lesson to learn how to use this? Or did you just put it away and go do something else? Because at some point, there's a responsibility on you, even as a kid, because there was on me as a kid, on what you're doing. So, yeah, it's tough and it's not fair. And life isn't fair. And I'm not calling for it to be fair. I've spent, 11 days in a coma on life support. Wasn't fair. However, I don't need it to be fair. I just need a chance.
But I don't think you really believe that, though.
100%.
And I say that because we live our lives with the expectation to perform, get a job, provide for your family, and, be good, productive citizens.
Right.
But if there are mitigating factors that challenge that, especially as a Christian, I will hope that you will agree that those mitigating factors need to be addressed. If I'm poor, let's talk about the parables because we're believers. Okay, let's talk about the parable with Jesus when he was the parable where the king was coming to town, and the lady was getting ready for the king to come, and the homeless person came.
Right.
And she was like, get away. I got the king coming. I got prepared for the king. The hungry person came.
Yeah.
Get away. I was preparing for the king. The king finally come. And, he's, this been chastising her, if you will.
Yeah.
And he's telling her, like, hey, I was hungry and you didn't give me any food. I was naked and you didn't give me any clothes.
Right.
So, and he said, what you did to the least of them, you also did to me. Yeah. What you didn't do for them, you also did not do for me. And the reason is because that affects, James said, how can you tell someone to go and be in peace, but do nothing about their shortcomings? Right. The expectation is for us to perform, make money. If we want to have family, provide for our families, be productive citizens. If there are things that are hindering that the government can do something about, to your point, I believe that there is a lot of overreach. You went back to the 60s, and I think there was a reason you pointed it out. That's when the civil rights movement was born and exploded.
Right.
Now the government is coming in not to do for you necessarily, but to assist you. The expectation is to give you some assistance to help get you where you are. So now that you can have the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Right.
Now, do people abuse it? Absolutely. And not just the takers of it, but the institutors of those programs not doing it perfectly. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that upbringing, mitigating factors that can have nothing to do with you, still, you were in a coma.
Yeah.
You know, thank God that you're good now.
No doubt.
But the expectation today is it don't matter what you went through, it's for you too.
Right.
You were in that coma.
Those mitigating factors.
But you were in a coma getting tended to. They didn't just leave you over there to die. They tried to bring you back to health.
Yeah.
And that's so that you can have a chance to still live and be here and do.
Mm-hmm.
And my point is essentially, it's not apples to apples
I'm with you.
comparison, but it does give us some context and how people do need help sometimes to get them to where they can perform and do for themselves.
And I'm not against helping people. And Jesus said, to your point, Jesus said the poor will always be among us. So
what does that mean?
No matter what you do, no matter how much you give, there's always going to be poor people. So, and I'm not saying everybody needs to be poor, but he also acknowledged there at some point, there's going to be poor people. You need to push forward. Now, I'm all for helping people in wherever you want to go with it. Housing, food, education. I'm all for this. But just when you're going off of the definition of equity is my issue. I don't think we should have equal outcomes. Equal opportunity, yeah, we can get there. Fairness is not really a real thing, but in the workplace, in getting a job, in whatever, yeah, we can get there. But don't, and I'm just going off the definition of equity.
Yeah, I think there's a misunderstanding there because it's not saying that you all have to have the outcome other than the opportunity to be safe and provide for your family. That should be an outcome. If that's what it's saying, yes. But it's not saying like Coach Joe made, how much money did you say? $8 million?
Yeah.
It's not saying you need to make $8 million and you need to make $8 million. And to your point about the dead, the poor would be amongst us. Yes. But he said a whole lot of other stuff too on how to care for and do for the poor. So we can't act as if that one verse outlines and details a whole mindset to have towards the poor.
Right. Oh, and I'm with you. And so, and I think that's where probably our views on government gets. And once again, we're being manipulated by a whole bunch of people and outside factors just through every day that when people start talking about equity and then it's like, then you can spin that into, because you do see that, the rich need to pay their fair share in taxes because it's not equitable. This person needs to do this.
Do you agree with that?
No. The rich, what is a fair share? What's that number? How much is fair?
So if you're looking for a hard number, no, but if you're understanding the context, the rich pay for the same price of gas that we pay for. Electricity, price of eggs, all this is the same. But if I can't even make a living wage, because of my circumstances, where I live, where I was born, or the job I have, but we all get the same benefits from these beautiful highways. I told you I came here this morning.
Yeah.
I hit the highway, I set my GPS, man, and I was here in 2 hours and 40 minutes, man. Yeah. I enjoy those things that government are providing. I'm not rich.
No.
But I have more than some people.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that have more than me. But all three in those categories get to use those resources the same.
Right.
So my point is, when they say is that fair share, again, this government has decided to be a democracy.
Right.
Where people do their part. Yeah. But so my point is, we can always debate, and those are policy differences.
Right.
Debate what it looks like. But I don't think that there's any debate on if it should be paid to take care of people and get them services, clean water, clean air, police and fire.
I think all that's fair.
Education and all that. So, but is it fair to say like you got to pay 30% of your income and you live in poverty and somebody else has to pay 30% of their income and they're billionaires?
Well, if somebody's in poverty, they're not paying 30%. They're paying 0% of income tax.
But there's more taxes than income.
Well, what I'm saying is 49% of Americans don't pay income tax after they get their tax refund. So there's that. So the poorest of the poor aren't paying income tax.
But they pay for gas when they buy foods and goods and clothes.
So do everybody else. So if you're paying the top tax bracket, and I'm not, but let's just say you are. If you're paying the top tax bracket, and that's 38%, and then you pay if you're in Arkansas, let's say, then you pay your 7% income tax and your 42%. And then you pay property taxes. And then you do pay the, and that's, the whole thing I'm sure we can both agree on, 40 cents of every 40 cents of every gallon of gas that we buy in Texas is tax. So there's a 40-cent gas tax on every gallon that you buy. So by the time you do this, and then you pay your property taxes, and then you pay your sales tax on your eggs or whatever. So, and then let's say you want to go fishing. So you buy a fishing license, right? And that's equal. And then, or if you want to go hunting, or if you want to buy a car and your sales tax and all this, if you're paying that 38%, by the time you get through your year, 60 to 65% of everything you made has been paid in taxes. So is that number fair? Should 65 cents out of every one of my dollars go? No. Now, also,
that's a good point.
Do I believe we should be charitable and help people and give and want the government to? I'm all for EBT. I'm all for housing assistance. I'm all for these programs. But we have to say, we can't just always say, we got to take it from the rich. We have to say, hold on, how can we better allocate our assets? What can we do?
Man, the rich will love you, man, because you advocate for them. They will love you like that.
Well, because I want to be one of them one day.
Hey, but even if, just a note on that, it says it's easier for an eye to pass through a camel to pass through eye of a needle than a rich man to enter heaven. So my point is, to say that money is not my focus. I understand that it's important. That old saying that money ain't everything, but it dang sure pay the rent. Yes, we need it to be productive members of the society.
Absolutely.
But at some point, to your point too, when is enough enough? I would say this. You're arguing what a lot of rich people don't even argue. Some of these rich people not even asking for tax breaks. They were like, hey, we get it. I got more money I'm going to spend in my lifetime, my kids' lifetime, my kids' lifetime. So when is enough enough? You got billionaires out of touch making decisions about the people that's struggling from check to check. So when you understand that the powers to be, now I got to get out of I am good. Is it okay to make sure that everybody else is good? Again, we all pay the same amount for eggs, the gas taxes and all that. So, and I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of that goes to giving them subsidies so they can continue to make even more money, which brings me back to my other point. When is enough enough? Right. If we're this great nation, let's define what great means and then put ourselves to the test. And now we made great progress. And I like that you went to the 60s and made the comment about the 60s because a lot of progress was made to right some of the wrongs. Yeah. Not all of them, but the other part is let's see what we can do. But then there are some self-accountability and responsibilities there too for each individual. But we cannot act if the truth is not there, that what kept people down from years, just because they say, hey, these are no longer white-only water fountains. Right. Now we're all good. Man, you talking about people that was born in poverty. You're talking about mindsets that you're having to deal with. People that don't know how to manage money. Yeah. And then there are some inherent privileges, if we want to be honest, and I'm not saying you got to agree with this or not. There are some inherent privileges that even come with certain rights that come with because you're a race. Now,
well, and let me ask you that. What can I do that you can't as a white guy?
Oh, man. Ooh, how much time we got, Joe?
We got time.
I'll stay here all day.
Oh, man. There's this thing called, so just background, and you know this. I spent my last 6 years in the Army doing Equal Opportunity Advisor, where we talked about mainly unconscious bias.
Right. And that's a real thing.
Yeah. So unconscious bias, for people that don't know, we give in my training, I used to give the example of a blind spot, in your car, you're driving, and you got that thing in there telling you that objects in mirrors are closer than they appear. But there's even blind spots where you're going through driver's ed. They tell you, don't just look in the mirror.
You better check that back window.
Yeah. And in the Army, you got your TC in the right seat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They tell you got to tell them, hey, clear right. Let them know. Because there are some things that you just don't know. And it's just how it is. No fault of your own.
Oh, I can accept
It's just how it is. So there are some unconscious biases built in all of us that are shaped by our own individual experiences or whatnot. So when it comes to your question, which was specifically,
what can you do? What can I do that you can as
a white guy?
Yeah,
it's not so much what if I can do it. What's the hurdle that keeps me from doing it and performing at the same level that you perform?
So what is that?
So they talk about, there's this study that talks about when people come in for a job interview, who is at an advantage from the person that's conducting the interview. And they say if you're a 6'3", blonde, white male, I don't remember the percentage, but your chances of getting that job increases over other people. And now there are other people. There can be women. There can be blacks. There can be
short, round guy.
Yeah, all of that. my point is now, so you break it down, low, what made him superior in desire to other people? His race,
right?
His height, his looks. So there are things that are inherently. So, but maybe. The other part is the decision maker. So now the unconscious bias. You know, there's the other study where they put this kid in front of two dolls. And the kid was always picking the light colored doll because there is whether it's intended or not, black is bad, white is good. Now you transfer that over to a number of different areas, whether it's the time of the day, you know, if the light on or if it's dark, you know, fearful, but they have been made to fear. You talked about the powers to be, made to fear certain people, certain situations, divide us or whatever. Right. So that's the real thing. So my point is, if that's real, and these are the powers that be that make the decisions, then
that are trying to manipulate us into feeling a certain way.
But yeah, they are. Yeah. But then there is also, like you said, the responsibility of self. Now, my responsibility is limited by my understanding and my knowledge. So there are advanced educational programs that talk about these things. There's not just people pulling stuff out of their ass. No. It's understanding like, hey, there are some unconscious bias that I'm not aware of. Now, if I'm a leader in charge of people, I need to be aware of those. So if I got a white guy from Texarkana, if I got a black guy from Houston, you know, what's going on with each individual so that I can know how to motivate them the same to get them on a level playing field, because the requirements are the same for both of them. So what can I do as a leader? And I'm talking about from a military standpoint, because that's how it is. Right. What do I need to do to get them up to speed? That's inequities.
Okay. But back to my question, what can I do that you can't do?
I just answered it. So now we're talking about, it's not just can I do it, is do I have hurdles that prevent me from getting the opportunity to do it? Well, okay. And we're talking about these people that are interviewing folks. So now it's not your fault that you're a white male coming in for an interview.
Right.
It's not my fault that I'm a black male coming in for an interview. But if this person doing the interviews have biases, whether they're conscious or not, it determines who they're going to hire. So now you educate the powers that be, the decision makers. You put laws in place, DEI programs, educational programs, affirmative action, EEOC, which is the civilian equivalent of the military EO program. All these things to make sure that there are processes, prevention programs in place that give everybody a level playing field.
Okay, so let me counter that with this. I was the hiring manager for a large company, and I don't want to say the name because I don't want to.
Yeah, of course,
cause illegal stuff. But I'll tell you off there. So we had diversity quotas, and if you didn't fit in one of these boxes, you didn't get the job.
Okay.
So if we had two equal people coming, and one was a white guy, but we already had enough white people, and one was a black guy. Even if this white guy could do better, he didn't get the job because we had to fill. So where's this guy's equity?
That's good. That's good. And I'm glad you brought it up because it shows the nuances of the program.
Right.
No program is perfect. So again, you try to educate people. The quotas wasn't included to not let somebody else get the job.
Exactly. But that's quotas went.
But that's the imperfections of the program. Yeah. And that's why, again, here it is, it's a privilege to hear the work and to do, and you get it. I get it. And I'm not discounting anything you're saying. Yeah. My point is that what it was created to do was to give opportunities to other races. Now, when they come in and everybody's here, you could talk about how we can make the program better. Right. But that's training is usually going to go, and it's not a one-time class. It's ongoing. And then it's checks and balances. Like, let's see how this program is performed.
Right. Yeah. I got a question.
Okay.
So on DI, do you think that, I'm assuming you think that like one of the first things Trump did when he came in was pretty much just squash it all. I'm going to assume your view is that before you just crushed it because maybe the things y'all were just talking about at the end, maybe like the where it was kind of going wrong in some ways. I imagine you think that they should have worked on making it like better. Man, instead of getting rid of it. Is that what you're thinking?
Kinda. But with a caveat.
Okay, what do you think?
And we don't have to get in this part. He never should have been president because he has shown his willingness to disregard just equal and decency with everybody for his own personal gain and self-being. And I think all that determined why he got rid of the program. So it's not just he should have did it differently. That's when the powers to be are biases. I think those are conscious biases where he come in and dismantled it for a reason. So that's why he not only did he dismantle it, but beforehand he set it up. He had to demonize the program to make people buy in and think that, oh, you're right. Why is this other person just because he's black getting his job? Kamala Harris. She slept her way up. She got elected. And 3 other positions before she was selected to be vice president. She put the work in.
There's a differentiation with her. She didn't get elected to be the nominee. But I'm
not talking about that. I'm talking about when she was...
to be vice president, though.
No, I'm talking about when she was district attorney.
Oh, yeah.
When she was the AG.
That's what I'm saying.
These things she put in the work to get there. They demonized her with outright lies and saying that she slept her way up and it was because who she knew. She had to run like everybody else run and get elected for that position. But they used her in those kind of situations to redefine DEI so that people couldn't hate it and justify getting rid of it. But it was a mean to an end. And we can get into that later. But yeah, so just to answer your question.
So you think he just went after it? But I mean, he campaigned on it. And so
yes,
over
the lies,
70 million. Yeah. 70 million people were like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because he lied and redefined it. My point.
So okay. So
because if you're asking about, hey, should me and him have the equal chance? Do I need help to get this position? No. I need help so we're on level playing field. And now we can go, and not for everything, but for when I'm out here trying to get a job or apply for a job, I don't want to be denied because of the color of my skin. Right. So that's where these programs came in. Imperfect as they were, yes, but the spirit of the program, I believe, was absolutely good. And then you can get in and fine tune it. And how do you do that? And then that's a whole nother discussion.
Right. But because now we're to the point of.
But if we act like that, the obvious is not there, then it's just going to be like, what's that old thing where you piling it on the rug, and it's going to get so big till we're going to stumble.
Well, and that's my thing. I don't, at this point, and that is why I did start with the 60s, because we've come so far through this. Like I said, I've never been in a segregated classroom. It doesn't bother me at our 10-year high school reunion, woke up the next morning, some of my black friends are sleeping on my couch. Just not something that I know. Now, I understand. I'm not saying there aren't racist people because I've met some of them and been like, what the hell are you talking about? Like that's crazy. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that doesn't exist because that does.
Because white people get bold in private.
Well,
I'm
sure.
But you're right.
But the issue is the difference.
Well, I just know I'm white and some people, I don't know if they'll see like, I guess the tattoos, I might give like
you're doing too much, man.
They may think, I don't know. I mean,
he's one step away from shaving his head.
Yeah, I think I may give that vibe sometimes, even though, but anybody that meets me is like, oh no.
Man, take the word think out and you do.
Yeah.
They teach it.
Yeah.
They look at you. Okay, he's white, but he's tatted up.
Like I'll be on job sites before and like I just have some old white dude just start. Like I said, I'm sure this happens in all races. Like you're saying, but like all I can say is like from what I've seen.
Right.
And some dude will just like I'm there working, like I'm literally pumping their shit out. And like I can't believe it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, what the heck?
Yeah. No. So MLK said that no one's free until we all are free. And my point is, if they'll discriminate on you because of tattoos, they'll discriminate on me because of my skin color. They'll discriminate on you because of your religion.
Right.
So my point is, we stamp out hate and teach people like, hey, these things are learned, whether it's directly in the classroom or just watching our parents or being involved in society. We learn it, but we teach people and make them understand like their unconscious biases, their prejudices, because we all have them, and to deal with them, especially at the highest level when you're solely responsible for things like hiring people, advancement of their careers, social programs that are applied so people could, like, you need to be aware of your biases if you have any so that you can fairly apply them. And the part of it is, if you don't, there's penalty.
You know, and one of the companies, when I was talking about it, I did a lot of hiring for, I think total in my career, I've interviewed over 2,000 people for jobs. And so I've seen a lot of people come through. But one of my big takeaways in our hiring training and our interview training was, don't judge somebody by what they wore to the interview. And a lot of old school people don't like that. I always like that because maybe they couldn't afford the better clothes. Maybe they couldn't afford the better shoes. Maybe they had it pretty tough and things. So that was one thing that we did. And I've carried throughout my career is whatever you wear here doesn't have to do with whatever's in here. Right. We can get you going. And
because the job that they're interviewing for could change their life and give them.
But those are things that you can change.
But that's what and then that's what you're saying.
This is something I can't change though.
No, that's so exactly that is
right. So it's not an apples to apples comparison.
Well, no, and I wasn't trying to, but I was just saying, that's one thing that we always made sure that I was taught was, okay, you don't know where this person came from, and just because you're black doesn't mean that you came from one spot or the other. I know poor black people and I know rich black people, and so it doesn't really affect who I think you are.
And that's good.
Because it shouldn't, because I don't know anything about you. Other than what
if everybody thought like you, then man, this world would be a better place.
Well, I don't know if it'd be a better place, but it'd be different for sure.
The powers that be, though, that's not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you that.
So what percentage of you think, I think part of this is that it's so uncomfortable, right? Like to have a conversation on race is typically uncomfortable. Maybe because the powers that be have made it that way.
Absolutely.
But it's like, what percentage do you think of adults in the United States won't even entertain the thought that they may have biases?
What percentage? So this is not scientific, but I think it's the overwhelming majority of us. Because even I remember going to EO school, like they pushed these conversations, and I saw people break down into tears when they realized that they had these biases. They was like, no, I have black friends, or I have white friends, or I have Hispanic friends, or I had a Muslim to use my bathroom. They don't even realize these biases until they get you some of these advanced trainings that's well beyond the conversation that we're having. And you realize like, dang, I need to check that. Right. The mature or the people that go in here first are thankful for this kind of training because of the exposure. But to your point, it is very, very difficult. It is very uncomfortable because now you're charged to do something about it. Or act like you don't even know.
So the best thing, I've talked, man, I've had a lot of these conversations and I'm always looking for like a call to action to go do something, because like a tough conversation where we just both get uncomfortable and then walk away at the end, that's good because you might as well not even had it. So like, what's the call to action? And I feel like so far the call for at least on this deal is like you're saying, I think we all could do better about maybe challenging ourselves. I think if you're challenging yourself to think about race, where a lot of people are just like, ooh, that's icky, I don't want to touch that. But you might, so you think that thinking about it more, challenging ourselves on how, we were raised or just, or maybe just some of our like natural way we respond to things. And nothing's really natural, all our natural responses are just, everything we've ever learned and coming out in a moment, right?
Nature versus nurture.
So I think what I think is true liberal thought is openness to thought, not being closed-minded about where you are. Natural biases and natural prejudices and all. Because look, when we were, if you believe in evolution, but however the human race evolved, when we were, hunter-gatherer peoples,
right?
We had to take those biases to can't go over there because there's a crocodile and it's going to kill us. And so we've always had stereotypes we had to put in place whatever our environment was. So we have to be open thought of, okay, we know about these prejudices. We know about these biases. We know about the inherent things that we bring to the table. Now we have to be willing to listen to the uncomfortable. Now we have to be willing to have that conversation and not get offended and not get mad, which we can do one-on-one or with a few of us, but then not let an overlord, a government, someone that's in the whatever political party, I think both Republicans and Democrats manipulate us. I'm not a fan of either.
Yeah, me neither.
because they just use us to enrich themselves, to stay rich, or to whatever that might be. We have to say, okay, well, let's have this conversation. Let's be willing to hear, which is why we're both here. And then not be afraid to have it again with somebody else. And then have it again with somebody else. And sometimes, people are going to call you something, or the people aren't going to like it. Or, hey, that's stupid. Why are you doing that? No. That's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm going to rock on.
I like that. I have a question. Words. Do you think that some of the words that they get like almost politicized or some, it's words we hear like all the time, like even like all the isms and the stuff like that. I think they, obviously they're important because there's like you said earlier, like there's real deal racists. Like there's people that really, they just hate you for something you have zero control over. They hate me for something I have zero control over. Right. But do you think it's, let's say I have these biases and I'm working them out. And it might be fair to say I feel like maybe I'm trying to work them out harder than other people, right? Mm-hmm. So like, does it do good to still blanket me as like racist, right? Or do you think that makes the word lose meaning when we stop throwing it on the people that are just like racist? You know what I'm saying? Because have I thought something racist before? There's no way I haven't. You know what I'm saying? Because we probably all do. Yeah. And but like for the most part, and it never sounds good when you're a white guy and you're like, this is why I'm not racist. Like that never plays out good. That's not really what I'm trying to say. But I'm saying, does it make the word lose power if you use it, if you start blanketing people and even people that are trying really, really hard. Yeah. Let's say if I'm trying super hard and someone's still like, you're racist no matter what.
Yeah. I think depends on the arena you're in. Right. It can water it down. Okay. But nevertheless, it doesn't take away that it's true. And the person that experiencing it or have experienced it, like it's lifelong effect of it. Like right. You might be able to learn to deal with it, but it doesn't go away. And I'm talking from experience. Right. So, but as a call to action too, back to your other question, when you understand that, as gun-ho as we are, we can only go as far as our capacity allows us. Right. My understanding, the resources that I have available to me. That's why they have programs, the people that have devoted their lives and careers to these type of issues. And they understand them far better than even me, who've actually worked at a professional level in this arena. We have to be challenged. You go to the gym and I'll push myself, but I don't push myself like the personal trainer push me. I'm like, man, I ain't got nothing left. You like it? You remember at boot camp? You're like, I work way better with a grown man yelling at me. Man. So, but that's just kind of how it goes. They're going to push you beyond what you would even push yourself. Even the most disciplined people, right? When you shaking that muscle failure, and you scared like that drill sergeant looking at me. I gotta. And you end up squeezing 2 or 3 more out. Yeah. So that's what happens when you get in these programs. They teach you things that you didn't know. They push you beyond what you even thought you could push yourself. And then afterwards, when it's the fourth quarter and everybody else tired, man, you got a little bit more to give. Right. You understand better. And you even picking up the pieces for those who have even faltered. And that's what the programs do. When we dismantling them, you take out these safeguards, these programs that were designed to help, imperfect as they were. Right. Now you look at why would they dismantle? Because now there's other issues. And that's why I didn't want to just leave it at what you asked. I was like, it's more to it than that. Right. But these programs, they was created in good spirit. Can we fine tune them and do them better? Yes. But also, here's the other thing I tell people, and I hate hearing it. We don't want to suffer. Even me as a black man that has dealt with racism, I don't want to suffer. And I'm not saying that I should, but suffering is part of our life. And we're going to all go through it and experience it. And that doesn't take away from the need for these programs to come in and try to help and better, because that's what we were charged to do as humans, is to figure out who needs something and just give a little to help bring them up and have a little more compassion. And if that means that I got to spend a couple more of my dollars, a few more of my hours and time and listening and having these kind of conversations, I think it's well worth it. And that's how we become better. So when you're talking about the call to action, is being pushed to do more than what you even think that you've done yourself, because there is always another level.
I like that.
Yeah.
Let's move to a different topic.
Okay.
That was great. Everybody good there?
Man, let's do it, man.
I feel like...
Hey, man, before, when you edit the video, put the clapping hands
Oh, yeah.
in between there, man.
I like it. Now, let's hit another uncomfortable topic since we're having fun.
Hey, but this was good, though, man. This was good, man. I appreciate you, man.
I mean, I'm with
seriously, yeah.
Everything's good.
Yeah.
Let's make it worse.
Right.
No, I don't know. I don't think I've... Well,
when everybody comes in open and willing to hear and listen,
it'll be good. Yeah. All right. So we got to talk about immigration. Obviously, the protests and all that stuff. So I'm not entirely sure how to even start this. What scares me is when I talk to people and they have a real simple answer to it. That really scares me. There's nothing weirder to me than a real simple answer to a really complicated thing, right?
Yeah.
That makes me feel like you haven't thought it out. Is that you maybe just picked whatever the party told you to or whatever. Like if anybody has a simple, like a super simple answer to like this, what we're finna get into, I get worried a little bit, because there's layers on layers on layers on layers.
Which is like our last topic. I mean,
right? Yeah,
there's so much nuance in that
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can dance all over it. Yeah, I'm with you. Here, can I give you
let's
just my overlaying thought on it?
Yeah, and then we'll work off that.
Go from there.
Yeah.
Is that all right with you?
Of course.
Yeah. All right. There's the misstatement often that we're a nation of immigrants, and so but we're a nation of laws that accepted people from different countries to assimilate to become Americans. We're Americans. You're American. You're American. I'm American. We're Americans. And so with that, the American culture is what we want. Now, as far as immigration, I'm all for it. I'm all for other nations other people coming here that want to be America. I love this country. This country's created more freedom economically and elsewise than any country in the history of the world. Even as far as we were talking about race earlier, we were one of the first countries to end slavery. There's still active slavery around the world today. So you can go, we've created more opportunities. And like you said earlier, we've learned from a lot of the bad we've done, and we're trying to correct some of that. So I'm all for immigration. The illegal part of immigration is where I get into it. So, and that's hard to do with 40 million people that have been come here illegally. One of my buddies, I remember when he got here in second grade, spoke no English, right? And as we grew up and as he learned English, his dad walked across the border with him, and I mean 100% illegal. Now he has since become an American citizen, pays taxes, is a business owner, has employees, does all the things. So I'm glad that this didn't happen when he was here, because he's one of my best friends. And he's an American citizen and he's a taxpayer. So I think there's some nuance in that, because that's the third time I've said nuance. I'm trying not to do it again. Because if you're here and you're trying to better your family and you're trying to do that, okay, let's find a pathway to pay some back taxes, assimilate to our culture, become American, and help us be the greatest country that there's ever been. If you're here and you came illegally and you're into, selling people, which happens, it's selling drugs, criminal, all that. Okay, let's get them out of here. So that's my immigration stance. And that's a hard stance to have, because that's hard to do. That's not an easy, okay, we're going to take these people, because if you're illegal, you're still illegal. You still have to go file your paperwork. And I remember him talking about having to go back to Mexico and have his paperwork filed and all the steps to get here. So that's kind of my overarching, I'm sure I've got thoughts inside of that, but that's my overarching where I am on immigration.
Man, so is this a debate or no, I'm just making so a couple things I want to just...
Yeah.
You said that we're one of the first countries to get rid of slavery.
Uh-huh.
And I just want to make sure, are you saying that like a badge of honor? And I said it because there are some nations that never enslaved people. So I'm just saying, if that's the bar, I think that's a issue.
Well, so Americans didn't create the slave trade in America. That was brought here by the British.
Right.
So it was inherent in the culture
But the British or who end up occupying this country and continued the brutal acts throughout and still.
And I'll give you that.
Okay.
And that's why when we abolished slavery and then with the, and then came the Emancipation Proclamation and then, and actually, what is it this week? We're going to have Juneteenth. And so we're going to get to that. So, so we are one of the first nations to do that. If we wanted to be real mad about slavery, we'd have to go back to the African continent.
But I don't want to get too far.
Sold into slavery.
But
yeah, I would say that I wear it as a badge of honor that we're one of the first to end slavery. Yeah, it's not good that we had it, but we recognize it within.
Well, I mean, I guess what he's saying is that we did break. We're not the British. We inherited that, and it was bad.
Inherited what?
Slavery.
Wouldn't you say?
Who inherited slavery?
America did.
America became the people who enslaved people.
No.
So the people.
Well,
the people break away and ideals evolved. Yes, but the people who brought them over here lived here and set up. Let's be honest. There's a part of the Constitution that says that black people are only 3/4 of humans.
Well, that's actually that's an anti-slavery reason. That was to make it so that the South didn't feel the need to acquire more slaves in order to have a greater vote. That was to diminish their vote.
You see how, so this is an example how two people could see something, whatever your reason is.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to change your mind.
No.
Ask 100 black people and ask them if they're going to think about it like that.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a badge of honor. I was trying to.
No, I'm talking about even the 3/4 part. Yeah.
Oh, the 3/4. Okay, yeah.
But any of that. So my point is, just because I don't want to dump that because we're on from racism, and it's almost kind of like closely related. But this immigration thing, you're saying that we're not a nation of immigrants, that we're Americans with American values.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is that we were formed from immigration, and those ideals are what shaped us. We're a melting pot of people from different cultures, different beliefs, different passions, different convictions. And if you're saying that's what America, then I absolutely agree. But that in itself is reflective of, because we are immigrants from different parts of the world.
So originally, to go back to the British.
But do you agree with that part? Because I don't
want to melting pot and then everybody can become American. Yeah, I mean that's America. Yes, I can agree with that.
Okay,
because and we do, but we've had pauses in our immigration in the past to give that melting pot time to melt. So they've paused immigration to, it's like if you're gonna make you a good chili.
When?
I can look it up. We've had immigration pauses.
Immigration?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Even legal immigration. And so we would pause it to give everybody time to assimilate to the American culture.
Okay.
And then they would start allowing more immigration in. And so yes, did we have immigrants? Absolutely. Did, I've got family members that, my grandpa claims that our people came from, German goat herders or something like that. I'm like, you could have at least made up something that was cool.
Hey, man, people like goat meat, man. Goat milk.
But so yes, there is that part of our history. But when we became a country, it was from people that were here, born here. A lot of our founders were, and then were American, wanted to be America.
But being America is reflective of all our different ideals. That's why they have freedom of religion.
Absolutely.
You're not controlled and bound to think and speak one way. You have the right to protest. You have freedom of speech.
Absolutely.
All these things that are part of the American culture that seems like it's trying to be stamped out right now.
Well, how's it trying to be stamped out?
Well,
let me finish my point.
There has been pauses.
Okay.
In immigration.
Yeah, that was good. But I'm glad.
1920s and also again in 1930s.
Okay, so that's when Ellis Island and all that was going on. And
right.
Bringing in. Okay,
so they would get used to being here.
Yeah, so in context, that's a totally different immigration program then than what's going on now. Totally. Well, and I say because they were shipping people in to certain parts of the country, Ellis Island, New York, processing them and doing medical checks and all that right there. So yeah, that government organized process of immigration then is totally different from now. And the purpose for it then, they was trying to build this nation with diverse people with skill sets from different parts of the world.
The laws are still set up to do that.
Yes, of course. But I'm just saying the laws are set up to allow immigration. Yeah,
Right, absolutely.
But even outside the laws, they're here. So you made some valid points, some good points earlier. You talked about paying taxes and how difficult it would be to change or deport, 40 million people.
Yeah, hard to go.
We all seen the jeans, fashion evolve.
Right.
They got the patches on. You might not, if I didn't like patches one day, I just yank them off. Now I got holes in my pants. And that's what it would be like trying to literally, and we're experiencing that now when they're mass deporting people. Now you got some people reaching out to the president like, hey, these people working our farms. Hey, you're decimating the hotel industry. So my point is, now they're realizing that and saying like, hey, so now Trump just 2 days ago said that he might do an executive order to change how it's done. So my point is,
but that'd be good though, right?
To some people, yes, some would. Now, my point is, I agree with him. Like, it's almost next to impossible to do a mass deportation because there's so many nuances in there, and you're going to decimate the economy because they do a lot of jobs. This is one of the most overstated. I shouldn't say overstated. One of the most stated comments out there is that they do the jobs that nobody else want to do.
So let me ask you this then, because, and I don't think that if we're going to go back to our equality equity conversation, I don't think that's right.
You don't think what's right?
That they should have to do the jobs that we won't do. Because if we are not proud of our slavery past, then why would we want to be okay with keeping people in here that we can pay less, that we know don't live as well as we do?
But that's the byproduct.
So, I'm not for that.
Yeah, that's the byproduct of the type of economy we have. Where we have this.
So you're okay.
Capitalism.
So you're okay with modern slavery? I'm not illegal.
I'm not okay with slavery at all. So I think. I mean, maybe you answer that genuinely, but come on. I think I'm not okay with slavery. My point is, when I'm talking about the capitalistic society that lets business owners and the powers to be set wages,
right,
and whether it's below poverty or high-paying wages that lets you have the best life monetary-wise possible, that's just part of it. But my point is, there are jobs that I don't want to do. There are unskilled labor jobs out there that people want because of the life that they live or what they're used to, that they're okay with doing it. And these jobs are important and foundational to our existence. So if people want to do them, and I mean, it's just a part of what's been here for decades, if not, centuries, they are doing those type jobs. Now, whether I want to or somebody else want to or not, the issue is they are doing them willingly. Hotels, highways, construction. There's this guy in tears on YouTube today. It came on yesterday. They came in and rounded up a third of his roofing company.
Right.
That's from Venezuela. And some of them had legal documents to be here. I don't know if all of them did, but they rounded them up and just took them away. Now, this is the guy's ability to make a business, to do, to conduct his business. People's houses he's working on, the money that they're pumping into the economy, they're paying taxes, which brings me to the other point when you were saying that people should pay taxes. So you're aware that Obama, when he was in office, they passed the Dreamers Act. Mm-hmm. And it was to allow people a pathway to citizenship, which you said. So what it allows people to do, come out of hiding, pay your taxes, and if you've been here for so many years and you're paying your taxes, we're going to give you a pathway to citizenship. This way, is other benefits to it too. It's not just the money, because we limit a lot of things to just money. Now you got people that's not overcrowding and overwhelming the ER, because now they can get, now that they work and they can get benefits and get insurance. So it's not the burden on the on our economy and our medical and healthcare system like it was before. Crime can be reported because now these people are illegal. When they're illegal, they're not going to call the police.
Yeah, you can't call the police.
So now they become victims and preyed on because of their situation. So now all these things that they talked about, that the Dreamers Act let these people come out of hiding and be productive members of society. Right. Now, to your point, if you're doing the worst of things out there, crime is crime and you need to be dealt with. But they did exactly what you said that should be done and has been dismantled under the current administration.
And so part of the Dreamers Act was 15 million of our 40, and 10 to 15 million of the current illegals would not qualify under the Dreamers Act because of how far back it went.
Of course.
So
of course.
And I'm with, and even Ronald Reagan, arguably one of the best presidents in history and Republican, he came in with amnesty for the illegals that were here then.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Republicans didn't like that. However, I want to get back to the point. So you're okay with us paying them less for jobs we don't want to do because they're not citizens?
I'm okay. I'm not okay. I think limited to being okay is the mistake. Some things are. And if I got it, hey, I want somebody to move my furniture and I'm going to pay them $20. Hey, you can come do it if you want. If not, then cool. I mean, that's just the nature.
So you're okay with that. So I'm not okay with that. And so, and my point would be, if we be citizens, because we have a lot of people, even though our unemployment rate is, even though our unemployment rate's 4%, 4.5%, then we have a lot of people that have been taken out of the job pool that just don't look for work. Let's say, okay, these people are now, let's say even we make them all citizens. Let's go that route. Now,
make them all legal, all citizens.
All legal. Okay. So now we have to pay everybody a wage that's better. And I'm not for the government setting standards. So let's say that.
It's like you want it both ways, man.
No, I'm going to get there. So now we have this person that's over here that they can't get a job here because they had to go home, and they're not a citizen. So the employer, the landowner, the business owner can't go hire that cheaper wage and put them in servitude. But it's okay because we just wanted to pay them $20 to work on our flower bed. So you can't do that anymore because you'll go to jail as the business owner, as that person. Now we can go get one of these people that are not in the job pool and say, hey, this isn't $20 anymore. We're going to pay you $100 to do this. Does it make our services more expensive? Our farm? Yeah, it does. But it brings Americans back into the workforce. And
I think you're simplifying it to a point to where it's not even rational and practical. Because if you're going to pay somebody...
Can I ask you about can I bring up the roofing deal?
Okay.
Sure. Right. So you said the roofing guy had half his team gets took down. Roofs, if I'm not wrong, get paid for by insurance most of the time, right? Most people have house insurance or a brand new one where people are getting a loan. But what I'm saying is that you could say that I have to have a crew of illegals to get this roof done. But that's where I'm going. Like his crew was full of illegals.
No, it wasn't.
Or some. Well, I mean, if they're snatching people that ain't supposed to be.
But they are.
Yeah, okay. So that's
the issue. Yeah.
But not all of them, right?
But one of the arguments is that we need them to do the work, right? Isn't that part of it?
But that's part of it.
Because that's a business owner saying, I can charge $11,000 for this roof and look at the profit margins.
But that's capitalism, though.
Yeah, it's still exploiting people.
But my point.
So we're okay with. We're not okay with it in the 1800s, but we're okay with it now. Is what I'm trying to.
It does equate. It does not equate.
How not?
In the 1800s, when people were slaves and working for free.
I think it's different. I still think that's different.
Okay, maybe, but if you come here, you come here. So let's say these nail salons that are in the country. Let's get away from the roofing. A lot of these nail salons, they'll bring people in on guest visas. Okay, they'll stack them 20 to a house. Okay, then you work here. If you don't do what we say, we send you back to whatever land you came from. That's reality. That's here in Texas.
Who's saying that?
I know it for a fact.
No, I'm just saying who is. I'm just trying to understand.
Let's say if you're Vietnamese from Thailand or wherever.
Who's saying if you don't work here, you're going back? We're sending you back.
Whoever owns that house that owns that nail salon, stacking you in there 20 at a time.
saying you just saying that they're using manipulation to control.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so those people, no matter how we cut it, slavery is real in that industry.
Yeah.
And they get sent home saying this is part of the immigration.
That's good,
discussion,
man.
because that really happens now.
That details and goes back to the point where people are living in the dark on the underground. They're not protected by the rules.
That's right.
Minimum wage, Medicaid, Medicare, whatever benefits.
That's right. They don't get any of that.
So that's the point of the Dreamers Act, was to help some of these people come out, and that's just one part of the puzzle. The other piece to the puzzle, another piece to the puzzle is that there are immigration hearings, that these people can go and have just due process, where they can go and apply for legalization and get heard for a judge and all that right there. So all that. So again, it goes back to what we said earlier about DEI and any other program. Nothing is perfect. So you can fine tune the thing. But my point is, if we're going to benefit or live under this capitalistic society, I mean, I'm not saying that anything is right or wrong, but some things are inherent to the process of these programs. And here's the thing: if a flower bed, I think that's the example you use. If it's illegal,
the example you used.
Oh, okay. If the illegal undocumented immigrant is doing it, and they were like, "Hey, they're doing it," and let's be honest, they don't spend nearly as much money as most Americans do, vacationing in the Alps and visiting New York and all that. So they have a different lifestyle that for them they're okay with. So my point is, there are rules and laws that dictate how much people are supposed to pay. Do people follow the rules? Obviously not. But I guarantee you, who ain't doing that job for $10 an hour is me. I'm not saying that you're not. But most people are not going to do the jobs, because here's the thing. If you have to up the wages, then you have to up the price of the merchandise that you're selling to people. If you're upping the price of the merchandise, now all of a sudden, how does that affect the rest of the economy? When living job, when 40% of people, 40% of the people living under poverty. Some jobs did not lend themselves to pay $100,000 a year.
I mean, most don't.
Yeah. So that's the issue with it, is like, is it a perfect thing? No, it doesn't allow people to take advantage of people. Right. Absolutely. But what we're going to do, then we got to come in and redo the whole, economic system. I don't know.
Let me hit a couple of your points, if that's all right.
Yeah.
As far as, the immigrant the illegal not being able to live the same life as us, do you know?
Not being able to, choosing not to.
Yeah, choosing not to. Yeah, but here's why a lot of that is. One of the key GDP economic indicators for the Mexican economy are wire transmissions from the United States. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that money that they send back, and it's untaxed, right? So you get your cash.
If they're paid cash.
They're paid cash. Yeah. They go to a Western Union or
and they send it back
Walmart,
to Mexico,
and then they send it back to Mexico.
Yeah.
Because they're going to support the family. And we all know that happens. But that's a key indicator. So in Mexico's economy, it's like oil, rubber, but in the top 10 are wire transfers from wire transmittances.
Yeah. Are you saying that's the problem?
Well, I'm saying, they're not living like us because they're sending all their money home to support their family. So we're losing out on that tax benefit. And that was just to answer that part of your statement.
Well, let's stay there real quick.
Yeah.
Because you saying that's why they're not. I think it's by choice. Some people just live a simple life. You got people with money. What's your guy named that own Amazon?
Bezos.
Yeah. He had that 2000 Honda Accord up until like 2014.
Right, yeah. He's definitely a choice.
So yeah, a lot of it is choices. Some people just choose to live simple life. A lot of people choose to go well beyond their means and be in debt. Yeah, I want to talk about something real quick. I pulled this graph up about you talk about the GDP. Man, the internet is a little wacky out here, but it's coming up. But anyway, they talk about the different economies. Here it is. And the United States GDP, 30.5 trillion. You know what's next? China, 19 trillion. And then Germany, 4 trillion. So my point was that even though that people are sending money back, man, we're not hurting for anything.
Oh, I'm not saying we are.
Yeah, that's so my point. And I'm just saying that. So my point was that I don't think that's a argument or a point that fits in the greater discussion of immigration that says like that's an issue because they're sending money back to their families.
Oh, it's 100% an issue. So much so
because they're doing the picking crops. They're cutting grass. Like they're doing this stuff.
So again, you're okay with paying them less because they're not a citizen to do the job you don't want to do.
If paying less is subjective or is relative. So I make less than the CEO. That's one of the biggest pay disparities up there. No. I'm helping making him the
I'm not arguing that.
$30 million salary.
You're saying because they're a lesser person.
I never said that. I never said because they're a lesser person. Why did you say that? I said they're a lesser person.
Well, you didn't say that. That's what's in. That's
I know why you said it. I'm saying that let's not make a statement for effect.
Okay. So what I have inferred from what you've said is that if someone isn't a citizen, and they're choosing to do this job for less, it's okay that we don't think they should have the standard of living that the American citizen does.
So you were asking him, is it okay? Not am I okay with, is it okay to pay people less? I think that's the capitalistic society. You pay people the wage that you want to pay and they accept it. And that's been the way that things go on. Now, it gets to a point to where it does become, in my mind, ridiculous to do it. But there's people washing windows on the corner for $5 or for whatever you're donating.
Right.
So at some point there is that. But my point is, we can, with anything, I think we can improve it. But I think there's limitations to it. And when we realize that a lot of the limitations, even is not our processes, is our thinking and our being and our willingness to live a simple life.
I can agree with that. So here's where I was going with that.
Mm-hmm.
Back to my statement earlier, we have a certain part of the population has just chosen not to work. And that bears out. Bears out pretty heavily. It's like 30%, 25%. Some can't work because they're disabled. So I'm not.
I'm going to say, let's
take them out.
Disabled. Someone that just have one income, retired, that's enough.
Yeah. But some people have chosen not to work because they can, for all the good that the system can do, because, they don't have to. So they won't work for the wages that the immigrant will work for because they don't have to, because our government will support them or whatever. So if we do away, hey, if you're not a citizen, you can't get these jobs. If you hire these people that do these jobs that aren't citizens, you're responsible and you should be held accountable.
I think that's
now we can bring people back into the workforce because we'll have to pay.
I think there's a huge assumption is that just because those jobs become available because the immigrants are gone, that these other people are going to let me go apply for the pick.
Okay, and I think that's right. I think that is a big assumption.
Yeah, and I think it's a wrong assumption, not a big one. I think it's wrong.
Okay, and so maybe that's the case because we've made it too comfortable for people not to work.
I think there are different factors that make it people don't work. Again, so if at 30%, I don't know that that's a factual number. Let me put it. I don't know what the number is.
Why are you talking about?
Yeah, but whatever the number is, I think it gives greater context when you understand what that pool is made of. There are some people that are retired. There are some people with disability. There are some people who have another income that makes it good. There are some people that hey, I live on the land. So there is a lot of that in there. And in that, there are also people that just want to be lazy and mooch off the system. But that's the beautiful thing about oversight. You got the IGs, inspector generals that come in and look at these programs and figure out ways to make them work better versus ripping the Band-Aid off and just getting rid of it and whatnot. And that's what the big difference is in this current administration. These are programs that, the late John McCain, they asked him when he was running for president, is healthcare a right or privilege? And he said that it was a privilege. And he got a lot of pushback like, come on, Christian, man, what do you mean? That it's a privilege. Fast forward when he had brain cancer.
Right.
And they was getting ready to vote down the Affordable Health Care Act. He was the deciding vote. He voted yes and said, no, it is a fundamental right for everyone to have access to quality health care. Not just have health care, but access to it too, because it's out there. How do you access it and make it affordable and accessible to everybody? So he changed his mind. Well, that's part of the issue too. Yeah. But he changes, it's a lot of speculation there because now he has brain cancer and he's dying and
now he
changed it. Yeah. But regardless of his reason, he came to the other side and said, you know what? Healthcare, basic healthcare is a right for everybody in here. And if we're going to carry this supposedly Christian nation title, it's the right thing to do. But saying all that to say that there are some things with this, with our nation, with our country, as much good as we do, there's a lot of better that we can do. And pushing each other to take care of not just everybody. I love that due process is afforded to everybody, regardless of your status, if you're legal or not. But
I think that's written. Get different rights than people that aren't.
But that's written in the Constitution. Now you can come in and I guess pass laws that change it or not. But due process is
you get
written.
Due process. But then you, as citizens, we have express rights that. We can't give our rights to the entire world or we wouldn't have a nation.
But that's not even what they're asking to do. Due process is saying that anybody that comes into our justice system has to be treated with, my favorite thing, dignity and respect.
Yeah.
And and that is an outright requirement. And that's what's pushing and driving a lot what's going on now, because that was not afforded to everybody.
Right.
And so my issue is that when you become the judge, jury, and executioner, where you own and just outright do what you want to do, that's an issue. Is this process perfect?
Right.
Far from it.
No.
Can it be improved?
Yeah.
To a little bit, but I think also that there's always going to be some people that are left out, or you could have did this later, or could have did this better. They're just part of it. But that's where we come in as individuals,
right?
Even those that the government can't help, that we can help. And I'm sure we all have done it and helped somebody, and gave a loan or saw a homeless or gave something that we've done. It's just part of what we were required to do as human beings, is to be human and help people when we can. So that's what I think.
So back to my workforce participation rate thing. Okay. I said it was 25 or 30%. I was wrong. Only 62.5% of our able-bodied workforce works. Mm-hmm. So 37.5% of people that could have a job do not. That's based off of the according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
I think that's labeling wrong, that could have a job, because some of those can't work.
No, this is able-bodied is what the Bureau.
Oh, it says able-bodied. Okay.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics says, and that's as of December.
So what is that? So that's why I said when you dissect that population and realize that some of them don't want to or don't have to. Because,
and that's right. So some of them don't have to. So it says this rate reflects the percentage of people ages 16 and older who are divided by the total non-institutionalized civilian working age population. So So that's that.
So that's 16 to like 60?
16 to 65, I think, would probably be the retirement, whatever the Social Security age is.
Okay.
Did it say that in there?
No, but that's just going to be your
the work population
working age.
Okay, I got you.
So that's why I say maybe we've gotten a little too comfortable not having to work. Now, if you're retired and you don't have to, or let's say grandma left you a bunch of oil money, you don't have to work, and you're in that number 2, and you're more blessed than a lot of us are that you don't have to have a job. Because let me tell you, if I was there, I'd be fishing right now.
There's a number of reasons that be in there that people that. So I don't think that can work is necessarily a negative thing.
Right, but what I'm saying is they would come out of that if the job.
Some of them
I'm not saying they would do it for $13 an hour or whatever.
They would have to pay more.
They would have to. But if we didn't have this labor force here that made it easier to pay less, then the wages come up because your supply of worker goes down.
You also said something earlier that I was thinking about. You're saying, okay, well, we have to pay the workers more, then the price of stuff will go up. But I mean, for some of these big corporations, I imagine that they're using the cheapest labor possible and still hitting the highest profit.
There's some more. That's part of it. What I mean? It's the labor, it's the products that they got coming in from China.
Right. Yeah.
Pennies on the dollars compared to us. So there's a lot of other factors in there as well. But that's a capitalistic society, though. Right. So now you're gonna have to rewrite this whole thing. And I'm not saying that we should or shouldn't, but what's practical? And we're gonna do it. Or probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. All right, let's move to it. We'll keep on the same path, but we got to hit this news. The border.
Yeah. The who?
The border.
The border. Okay.
How are we feeling about it? You went first this time. You should go first this time. Open border. What are you thinking? What do you think about when you think how the border should be?
Oh, they're definitely not open. I think there's a lot of rules in place that if we just enforce them, that would be a big help. I think bipartisanship, which seems like a foregone concept right now, because it's been used to be a campaign. Right. What's the word I'm looking for? Opportunity.
Yeah.
Versus like I really want to fix it. So absolutely not. I think we need to know who's coming in and vet them and give opportunities. So not just so that we can benefit off them, but also for their own protection. So that you're here. So come out of the door, get protected in your community. If you need police, fire, or medical attention, if you need whatever, just come out and be a productive part of society. And I think that's part of that process has to be through controlled borders.
Why do you think that, and I'm asking you specifically here because you're more left leaning. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that they didn't even say it was a border crisis until it was time to start campaigning again?
Can I say something before you?
Yeah.
We agree 100% on what he just said. So I just need to say that. Like, now how we get there is different. But anyway, I just want to get that point that, we're in 100% agreement on what was
agree with what you said there for sure.
So what your question was?
Why do you think it was open for so long? And not necessarily open, but I mean, not closed.
15 million people.
I think I just think people ideals and fundamental ideas are different.
Right.
Priorities are, because it was wide open under several administrations.
Yeah.
So my why? I mean, you have to ask each one. I think is sometimes you don't know it's a problem until it's a problem, kind of thing. Right. You can be so far, disconnected from.
Or do you think
situation.
that they may have focused on other? I know they shifted their focus for sure, but do you think that they may have was like you were saying earlier, since bipartisan stuff is so far flung, is that since Trump hammered the border so hard, build a wall, all this.
I don't think I'm gonna be honest. I don't think he cares like he.
For politicians, I don't think any of them actually care.
Well, I think some two people do have passionate issues, and there's some Republicans that absolutely care.
Right.
But I just don't think that Trump is one of them.
And maybe not, but I'm saying like what happens and what their intentions like behind it are. Like we can't really control that, but it's like he did lock the border down in
eventually
4 years. Yeah, eventually, yeah.
But we can't act like that. What didn't happen is when Langford out of Oklahoma sponsored a bipartisan border bill, that he's like, no, I'm gonna campaign on this. Do not. So now,
told him not to.
Told him not to do it. So that's what I'm saying. That's the only reason I really said that he's not really truly concerned.
Yeah.
But to your point, why can't they or why didn't they? I mean, I don't think there's one answer. I just think people got caught sleeping. Well, normally we say you got caught sleeping with your pants down.
Yeah.
And some of them, I think there's some underlying motives that people are not going to speak to. Yeah. And I think some people do want to change the dynamic or the landscape of what America looks like.
Yeah, because well, what about building like sanctuary cities, right? That doesn't seem like that they took their focus off of the border, just like, we just stopped looking and stuff. But we're also setting up these sanctuary cities where we pay people to come in.
So I've been in some of those programs and boots on the ground working with some of those people. And these are people who generally care about everybody. And it's like, hey, we got an abundance here. You got some of the blue states that California, they give out, $80 billion a year, and it goes out to other countries that don't bring in near as much money. So
other
states that bring near as much money. Yeah, appreciate that correction. But there are people who are passionate about, to their heart, it is in their values and principles that they believe in, to take care of the poor. And that drives a lot of that. And I know for some people, it's hard to think that is that, but I've been and talked to and met with and seen some of these programs. They're like, man, they live, sleep, and think, what can I do to help other people? So now, immigration is not the issue that they created, but that's the issue that we have right now. And so that's what sanctuary cities. It's not like, hey, people come in from Mexico, people come in from Venezuela, people come in from Asia, and come here and let me take care of you. This is the problem at hand, and here is what we can do to help the issue, while hopefully the government try to figure this thing out. Because Adams up in New York, Chicago, the mayor that was in Chicago, so I can't remember her name at the time, but they was like, hey, we want to help, but it's really depleting us. And then added on top of that, then you got people like, what's that guy here in Texas, the governor? Abbott. Busing and flying people to these states, just exasperating the issue there. That was totally unfair. But my point is, these people who was in good faith, like, hey, we got an abundance here. Let us do what we can to help some of these people, while the government is should be hopefully figuring this thing out. But at the same time, you had some people that were not good players in the process that was exasperating the issue.
Okay. What do you think?
Adams did come around and once, and I'm not a Greg Abbott fan all the time, so let's get that out there. But on the border, I'm a Republican, and I just don't agree with the way I'm mad. I'm still mad about COVID and him shutting down my family's businesses. So that's where I'm not a fan on. But on the border thing, I'm glad he sent them to New York, because that's what made Mayor Greg Adams in New York say, hey, we can't just keep taking these people. And then the point was, we can't either. It's crashing our system as well. As far as the Trump deal, now we have the most secure border that we've had in years. So I'm glad we got there. However we got there. The reason I think this is a little just Zachology, right? I can't prove this, but I can take what I know and go through just, critical thinking. When you do a census of the country, and you probably know this, dealing with, doing what you do. When you go through a census, you don't have to be a citizen to be counted as population. So if you create a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state where people can be counted as your population, if you're losing voters, which voters are fleeing California, let's pick on California because everybody else does. So voters are fleeing California in waves, going to Florida, going to Texas, going to redder states. The numbers are overwhelmingly show that. Then if you can bring in more people that get counted, every 740,000 people creates one U.S. representative. So for every 740,000 people, they don't even have to be able to vote. Just that they're there and they live there, you get a representative. So if your voter base is leaving, you can, and I don't think it's the people on the ground. I think the people on the ground do care, do want to help poor people, do want to do that. I think this is the Geppettos, the puppeteers, the elite that the ones when we first started, I said, there are people that are manipulating us to put stuff against us. If you look at it, for every 740,000 people, you get another vote. It's a way to shore up a voting base that's falling. And so that's just my thought, is that it was and is a ploy to strengthen a voter base.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And I said it because the ideals and principles that has driven immigration from the onset, they brought people here. It's life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. What's the poem that's on the Statue of Liberty? Give us your poor, give us your, right there. So my point is, we
your
can
masses bring us weak. Yeah.
We can act like that never happened, but it doesn't change the fact of how this country was built and what we're seeing every day. We are a nation of immigrants.
Well, but you said that earlier when talking about Ellis Island. And that's where the Statue of Liberty is, as you know.
Yeah.
Everybody wasn't allowed in, though. If you were sick, if you had diseases, if you couldn't produce for yourself, they sent you back.
Yeah, but my point is that was a nation in its infancy stage, right. still new. And they're figuring out how to do this thing. My point is that if we can't, we should not, I was going to say we cannot. We should not act like that immigrants are not a valuable part of the society with what they do, the services they provide. They pay countless dollars in taxes, but don't receive the many benefits from them taxes. So, but we do. So my point is, if we look at everything and
they don't pay any income tax a lot.
Yeah, but
some
they pay. Yeah, of course. But I'm saying some of them do when they came in, but that's another story. But my point is, immigration is not the boogeyman. Right. And unfortunately,
illegal immigration is the problem.
But illegal is illegal. A lot of it is illegal because of laws that's been made and formed recently. You got each president, they do their executive orders, and Congress that pass laws that change it. My point is, that's how it should be done. It shouldn't be come in and just be like, hey, because I got a new way of thinking, a new way of doing, I'm going to do things differently. There is a democratic process that we're supposed to follow. Absolutely. That all of these sudden means nothing to certain people in power. So I just hate the way that immigration has been made to be the boogeyman. Can it be done better when some people sleep at the wheel? Absolutely. But that's where you come in, and we as voters got to do a better job. Mm-hmm. Hold your elected officials to account. Absolutely. Show up at town halls. Demand town halls.
The executive order.
Vote. How many people don't vote? So there's this here. I think we're expecting perfection out of this imperfect system, and when things don't go our way, it's off with their heads mindset, and that's where we get in trouble because now we're being less than humans.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, you're exactly right. We're a democratically elected republic, right? And so our representatives are supposed to represent us. And when they don't, we should hold them accountable. We shouldn't let them go to Washington for 40 years.
But what does that mean? They're supposed to represent us? Like, break that down.
They're supposed to represent our views. Hey, I'm going to, like in this district, Texas House, U.S. Congress, Congressional District 1, our representative is Nathaniel Moran. Over where Red River Army Depot, their representative is Pat Fallon.
Mm-hmm.
If Nathaniel Moran doesn't represent what his 740,000 constituents want, they should say, hey.
But 740,000 people don't think the same. So now what?
That's right. So, but the majority will. And so that's why we don't have a true democracy.
But there's still responsibility to the minority.
Oh, and I'm not saying there's not.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't do what you want him to do, you got to move. If we were a true democracy, which thank God we're not, the minority would have zero effect because 51%
but
of the people.
Sometimes even the majority don't have. Because these people up here passing laws that don't have anything to do. So that's what I'm saying. Like the spirit, I think we understand the spirit of the program. I think for the most part, it has worked how it's supposed to.
It's created the greatest country in the history of the world.
But now I take issue with that greatness because now where we are right now, if we can agree, hopefully we can agree, like this is chaos beyond what we've seen in decades.
Chaos here?
Yes.
Right now? 600,000 people died. 600,000 Americans died in the Civil War. I would say that was a more chaotic time.
So, okay, for dead people, yeah, but hey, how many people died in Iraq and in Afghanistan? So my point for war, but I think you're limited to war. I'm just saying, people day to day dying in waiting rooms of capable hospitals.
How often does that happen?
It don't matter, man. Tell somebody
how often.
Tell somebody that mother died because they didn't get.
I'm not saying that person.
Let me finish.
I'm saying how many a day die in a hospital in a waiting room.
I don't want you to shape my argument I'm trying to make. Okay. Let me get this.
Go ahead.
So whether it's one person or 100 people, we have the resources to do better. But some reason we've lost the wheel recently. Okay. And we've taken our hands off the wheels, our eyes off the road, and we're so invested in self out of fear, out of greed, out of gluttony, out of just a number of other self-serving purposes that a lot of people are needlessly suffering when we have the ability. I was in Afghanistan. I seen them change governments, build nations. Did they do it well and perfectly? No, because look where it is. But there's a long history of the will to help people. Now, fine-tune what we're doing, and the reason we're doing it, take money off of it because, the people that's in power got more money, again, I said this earlier, than they're going to ever be able to spend in their lifetime, in their children's lifetime. But some reason it's not enough. Now you got the people in power that are billionaires capitalizing, making more and more billions since they've been illegally. If we want to be honest.
Yeah, on both sides, for damn sure.
But we're talking about the people that are in now. This is more chaos than we have seen in forever. And that's relative, but I'm going to tell you that we could talk to a lot of people. 4 years ago, when Biden was we didn't have this level of protest. Now, that's not the deciding factor on what's good and decent.
You are correct. We didn't have this level of protest.
Well, when was the BLM protest? That was 2020.
That's 2020. That was going into that summer.
That was
the beginning. He had just came in.
Yeah.
But my point that I'm trying to make is, if we don't see the lack of regard for the rule of law, the disparity in livable wages from the haves and the have-nots, if we don't see that the criminal justice system now is become just a mockery, and we're looking like some of the worst nations out here, when people that stormed the Capitol have been pardoned, and now the other people that's not on that side, now we're going to crush you and kill you. No, these are literally words that's coming out from the leaders. My point is, my 50-meter target is not what was. It's what's right now. When Biden was in office, I had my bars, and guess what I did? I got in the community, boots on the ground, and I did what I can to fill in the gap for what the government wasn't doing, whether they chose not to or could not do it. Right now, people are getting fired by the masses. I know people, that have lost their jobs.
They were doing Doge.
They got Doge, and it was not just Doge, just the down trace. They got help, those contractors and the people they hired, You got just a number of things that are happening. My point is this has been more court cases than in the history of any other president. And it's like, hey, he is getting rid of the Department of Education, put a lawsuit in. Hey, you illegally fired people. It created chaos. People got fired. And then the effects from all this disorder is not just easily a light switch. Dang, man, the lights went off, go cut it back on, and we back to being good. It's the chaos that it created. And he's telling us that he's going to do it. His people are telling us what we're going to do. Implement tariffs. Well, it's not your job. He's still doing it anyway. Now the stock market is up and down. All this stuff that's going on. So I'm saying is, for me, Democrat, Republican, or independent, let's get the people in there that honor the laws as they are written. And if you don't like a law that's out there, try to go through the democratic process to change them.
Or the representative process. The democratic process mass
but my point,
the majority rule.
My point is, go through the process.
Yeah.
Get them changed. And if you can't, then guess what? It's a lot of years behind us where people tried to pass laws and didn't.
That's
and
right.
we were not, man, this is one of the, LA is under attack. Man, I've trained
Who
for
are they
war.
under attack by?
You train for war, right?
No. I want to make a point before we get to LA.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Okay, yeah.
To something. I don't know. It seems like you could go find these big tight moments in all throughout Biden's deal.
You can. But that's why I said I'm talking about where are we right now. I can go and dissect Obama,
Yeah, but I mean,
Reagan, and Clinton,
Right.
and all that. But I'm saying, like, right now, like, I'm in the moment. And it's not that I've been quiet before, but I'm just saying, like, the chaos is real right now.
Well, let me
Yeah,
pause
but I
you.
mean, it was super real in 2020 for sure.
Well, yeah, and let me
Like-
pause you there. You brought up not to just talk over you.
Oh, no, none of that.
No, that's good. Where you?
Yeah.
So you brought up the Capitol riots. Lasted 4 hours. I know people that were there. So that's a whole different set of events. There were instigators in there. And so based on the evidence of people opening doors and opening gates, it lasted 4 hours. We're in what day of the LA protest?
Regardless, did they get convicted,
it's not
though?
regardless.
But did they get convicted? That was my point. That's why I brought it up.
I met with a guy 2 weeks ago that did 4 years in prison, 2 years in solitary for being there.
Yeah.
So absolutely people went to jail over it. Now, when you get to the LA
So that's
thing,
the point I was making. That wasn't about a comparison of how long.
So,
A crime is a crime, whether I kill two people or one person, I'm a murderer.
You were using it to show that there's chaos, but the chaos has been generated, especially with the LA stuff. They were dropping off pallets of cinder blocks, just happened to show up and be unloaded on trucks and for a peaceful I'm good for a peaceful protest. But to your point, let's stick with the law when it comes to when this is a riot, it needs to be shut down. And
but I never said that it wasn't.
No. I know you didn't.
Okay, I was wondering why you was pushing back on that.
No, I'm pushing back on the law. Sorry.
My point was to show that this administration did a blanket, what is it when you?
Blanket pardon
on those people. Indiscriminate. It didn't matter what you did to who and how bad you beat the police or whatever. Right. All of a sudden now it suited his purpose, so he did it. And my point is that is not how things are supposed to happen.
I think blanket pardons are terrible.
Well,
shout out to Biden.
Yeah, shout out to Joe Biden.
But see how y'all keep going back?
But you're trying to highlight this area. But why can't we highlight that area?
I'm not saying we can't.
Yeah.
Joe Biden did more pardons than any president in history.
But I want to be careful about the whataboutism because it does not allow us to address the now.
Right.
If you want to do that, we can.
Right.
But my point is, if I bring up something like,
but now is always affected from earlier.
No, not always. Sometimes, no. Someone do something today that didn't have nothing to do with yesterday. Not everything. I'm just saying that's not a blanket.
But I mean,
yeah. But my point that I'm trying to
equal and opposite.
But we're here because of the tensions that are current.
Right.
And I'm saying that, we can do that, but I don't want to be the defense for what's going on now is whataboutism. We could talk about the wrong in both. But I'm saying if you bring up an issue, I think I owe you the respect to talk about your issue. And then I could say, however, let's make sure we're not doing a double standard.
So so that's fair. Let's keep talking about this, but let's go back to that before we quit. That fair?
Yeah. If those are your rules, but I'm just saying I request that because I want to, if we're going to bring up an issue, I want us to not necessarily exhaust it, but let's give it its proper attention and do it before.
We'll stay. Are we ready to dive fully into the LA?
Look, I'm not really ready. Look, let me say this, though. We have to look backwards because because we were talking about immigration, then we're talking about border, and that's how we got here, and that's how we're going to get to LA. The reason we have to look backwards is you have to go way back if you go back, and this is why immigration is important, and this is why immigration law is important. And even you said that, you're for the strong border and you're for closing it down.
I didn't say I'm for closing it down.
Well, you said you're for having a wall and laws and
No, I didn't say about a wall, yeah.
You said having a strong border, right?
Yeah. Yeah, strong borders, yeah.
Okay, well, what does that mean if you don't
just
have a wall and
control?
laws?
Well, you have processes.
How do you control it without that?
Well, we did it for years. My point is that there are things that's going to happen that are out of our control. But that's what I'm saying. I think we're expecting this perfect process, and we could pump more money, more dollars, more people, more walls, and there's never going to be perfect. My point is, where is the better process, and what is a better? Because there is not one right way, and each administration comes in and hopefully through the right process do it, and not just come out rogue and just do what they want to do because it suits their purpose.
Right. And that's just going to be a philosophical difference between us, because I don't, and a lot of it has to do with self-feelings, right? I don't believe that they are going rogue. They have stayed within the law, and there are new laws. But however,
do you know people that are Americans are getting deported? Like intentionally, indiscriminately, don't matter.
That are U.S. born American citizens?
Yes.
How many? What are their names? 2, 3, 4, whatever, but the lack of regard. And now when the judge comes in, so that's what I'm saying. We can't say. Are you talking about Abreu from Connecticut, that guy? Because he was the one that was in the news for a while. No, I'm talking about the little kid with cancer that they deported, the little girl with cancer that they. She's an American citizen? Yes, she was an American citizen. Well, yeah, that's not good. But my point is that's the philosophy that allows it to happen. And now not only did it happen, they defended it and didn't. So we're not going to send anybody right their back? Wrong. That's not what I said. So now we're switching just that quickly switch gears. So I'm talking about. Understand. But I never said that. Actually, I said the opposite. Right. That there needs to be immigration that works. But my point is, when you go rogue, and I use that word intentionally just to show what these people are doing, they are in the courts at unprecedented numbers right now because they are not following the laws. Well, overwhelmingly, the court cases, when getting to an appellate court or the Supreme Court, they're falling for the administration. So even though it's taking time to get there, they're getting some big wins on immigration. But they're getting big losses too. And they're losing in the court of public opinion, which is not law. But my point with this is this. I don't think so. His ratings are up 20% on the immigration issue. So if we're going with public opinion, that's false. Man, you cannot. I would question where you're getting your news and sources from. But let's talk about this though. Quick internet search. What they're doing, everything out there is not credible stuff either. So my point is, whether he's doing a lot of inhumane stuff, they're taking people, shipping them to countries that are not even theirs. There's this thing built in, what I said earlier, into the process of this nation called due process. And when you think you can circumvent it because of whatever reason, because I'm the president, and I finally hire people that'll do my business instead of people that believe in the Constitution, which is the big difference right now. That's an issue. And that's why the people are pushing back. That's why the unrest is different. It's not like it was before. Did we have unrest before? Yes. But my point is, like, this is times are now. The unrest is like it is now because it's been generated for political purposes. Well, that's a talking point. Right. But the reality is that these people are rallying today not because Trump is at church singing choir songs. Well, I don't need a choir boy there. I need a winner. Well, a winner by what means and who expense. And who is our Americans? But do you realize that there's people that don't believe and think like you? Yeah, and I want them to have the right to not think like me. But what has to happen? The laws have to take effect and be enforced, regardless if I like it or not. Right. The laws are the laws. So when you believe because of who you are, you can circumvent, and because it didn't happen the first time, because the people you brought in had boundaries and barriers around you that kept you from going too far left. So now it's like, hey, let's bring in loyalists, get rid of the career people that follow the rule of law, so that now that we can do what we want to do. That hasn't been shown that he hasn't followed the rule of law yet. That's the talking point I don't understand. I think that's my hang up is he's operating within the law. So the Supreme Court just told him that he had to return Garcia, and it wasn't limited to him. It's like, hey, you have to give. So it is about Abreu Garcia. That's what I asked you earlier. Let me finish my point. They used that case. Because I can talk to that case. They used that case to set a precedence and show them, like, he is not the only person that got shipped. Hold on, let me finish. Okay, he's not the only person that got shipped over there. There's all these people. So now one of the other federal judges came in and said, you have to give people reasonable time to fight their
deportation. And not only that, you cannot be sending these people to countries that they don't even belong to.
Okay.
So now here we are, these people just coming in and just want to be, now I want to open up Alcatraz and do all these other things to show for what.
That's a different point.
Hey, I need you to let me speak,
Okay,
please.
I'm just trying to keep us on the same thing.
Yeah, let me, because I'm going to allow you to do the same. Now, my point is, I'm saying all these different things to show, like, there is a lack of regard for the rule of law. And it's established. This is not stuff that's just been made up and pulled out my butt right now.
Yeah.
Because it's suiting his purpose to be the strong-armed dictator that he said that he want to do. And everything that he's doing points to show, like, hey, I'm finna strong-arm the process because I want to. There's no other reason. It's a power grab. And that's what he's doing.
Okay, so let's talk about Abrego Garcia. I agree. And so I'm not going to name drop on you. I talked to an ex-Washington, D.C. official about that case. That's a constitutional lawyer. And they told me that, yeah, he should have to come back. So I'm okay with that. If that was outside the law, which it was found that it was. However, he's still going to be in prison because of all the human trafficking it is. So yeah, let's don't send him to another country. Let's keep them in prison because the way Abrego Garcia was portrayed in the media, that he was a family man from Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And he was not. He was a wife beater and a human trafficker. And that has been proven. And so he will go to, just look up the case.
I did.
Okay. Yeah. So then it's there. So he will go to prison for that. And I'm okay with them holding him in prison for violating the laws. Go ahead.
After weeks of delay, Abrego Garcia was to return to the U.S. on June 6, just in time for the unsealing of a federal indictment. He was charged in Nashville with allegedly leading a decade-long human smuggling ring, accused of transporting migrants, including minors, firearms, and drugs between Texas and Maryland.
So when's the last time that both of y'all looked at that case?
I looked at it when it first came out, but
Have you looked over the past 2 days and see the developments?
No.
Have you?
Well, hold on. Let me finish my point. I thought that's what we were doing. So if this guy, and let's say there's been some new developments in the last 2 days. Mm-hmm. However, okay, I'm with you. Let's don't ship people to foreign countries. But when you're found an illegal, and that's what I said from the beginning, if you're illegally here and you can find a way to pay taxes and you hadn't murdered, killed, trafficked people, which I said to begin with, all of these things, let's find a way to keep you. If you've been found to do because Abrego Garcia was never a citizen, he's illegally here, which is why he got rounded up. Mm-hmm. If I'm indicted for 10 years of human trafficking, why would we make this guy to be, okay, you can't leave him. Well, he's going to be in prison. So when I was talking to that ex-official, the point there was, let's don't move him out of the country, but they'll still be holding prison until they get their process, which is what you're for. Mm-hmm. And I am too. Mm-hmm. Let's hold them in prison to get these processes. So I can go with you on, okay, let's don't ship them off to whatever island country that you can find that'll take them. I can concede that. So then you made the statement about Alcatraz. Yeah. That is just, I'll give you that Donald Trump is a showman. He's a TV guy. He knows how to say things to get clicks and gets hits. You can't refit Alcatraz in 4 years to ever make it where it could be livable for somebody. So that's an outlandish thing to say to get attention. So I'll give you that.
You think it was just an attention grab?
I think a lot of what he does is now. And do I think he probably meant it? Yeah, I think there's probably some of both in there.
If we can say a lot of shit and then just like,
we're going to throw this against the wall. And if we can make it happen, fine. That's what I feel like he does sometimes.
Yeah. And it's those that actually make it happen that does. Yeah.
But is he operating within the law? The Supreme Court said no on Abrego Garcia, said to bring him back. But however, they didn't let him go. Abrego Garcia wasn't innocent. And so that's where I don't want to conflate the issue. He's still got to be tried.
Technically, he's still innocent right now.
Innocent until proven guilty. But he's being held under an indictment.
Wrong.
Yeah, they could be wrong.
So that's why I asked y'all if y'all look.
Okay, so what are the developments?
So now they're looking at the people who they're giving this evidence. So they looked at this court case. This traffic stop in Kentucky that happened a number of years ago.
Oh yeah, the video that's out.
So strange reason, they had the drug dogs there. They sniffed, no drugs. They saw that he had these other people. And they asked him, they said that he was taking people to another job site.
Right
around, I don't know. But now the burden of the proof is on them to relitigate this case from years ago when Trump was in office that didn't happen. But the point is this. They're saying that they got 2 people that are in jail, that they're getting to speak out and cooperate with the government and say that he's part of this trafficking.
Right.
The trafficking and did all these other things. If that's the case, so just rule of law, go to court, you litigate these things. So the first thing they're already saying is these 2 people are questionable. They're like, who are these people and where is these other people that can uphold and say, this is what just developed over the past couple of years. So now the judge is saying that, hey, this stuff seems suspect, that all of a sudden, now this stuff is coming out. You've been knowing about this traffic stop.
Right.
Whatever. And now you present it, but he didn't get stopped. I mean, he got stopped, but he didn't get arrested. And afterwards, after they searched his vehicle and questioned other people, they let them go. He said that he was taking them to a job site to do some work. For whatever reason, whether it was right or wrong, they believed it. But now they're presenting it. It seems like it's to say their own, but so it seems like, hey, we didn't do whatever wrong. Now, there's a lot of speculation there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you got to let this due process play out.
Absolutely.
And it's not, he is just the one that's at the face of it right now. But there's countless of people. Stephen Miller has already said he's directing them to arrest 3,000 people a day. And they're just going through indiscriminately at Home Depots, in schools, at games, everywhere. Just grabbing people up. But he said, to your point, what you said, you don't agree with that because you said if they're working and they're willing to pay taxes and they're not the criminals,
they're not the violent criminals. Because, I mean,
not the violent illegal, but it's a civil case. It's not a criminal case.
Well, can I answer you?
Do you know that, though?
Yeah. Can I answer your point on the other side of the coin on the Abrego Garcia? As far as, so they called the FBI, from what I've read, and under the current, when he was pulled over, under the dictates that were sent out, it was a catch and release type, hey, we're not holding illegals at this time, even though the law said, which has been proven that was mandates across many sheriff's offices. Of course. So the reason he wasn't arrested at that time is because that was the dictate of that jurisdiction was we're not holding any illegals. So then they had no reason to hold him, even though they did know he was illegal.
Illegal or undocumented, there's still a process. So if that was the case, if he thought they was human smuggling or human trafficking, they had a duty to arrest them.
Oh, should have.
So that's my point. So for whatever reason, now you can go and litigate and speculate what was going on.
Right.
But for whatever reason, whatever he told the police at that time panned out. And they was okay with it.
Right.
So to come back now because we got to get him back here, it seems like more pandering and posturing so that they don't look as bad as they potentially look now.
Yeah, if we're not going to believe anybody in a jail, which, then a lot of these cases for a lot of things go away.
I'm not saying you should.
Right.
But you should, but that's the evidence that this is whole, the grand jury is postured on that right there. That these 2 people saying that he's been doing things for years. And I'm not saying that he didn't.
Right.
But you got to let the thing go play out. You got to have more than, and that's what the judge said. This is built on a lot of circumstantial evidence and he say, she say. That's why it's looking bad for them right now. So
yeah, and we'll see what happens. I agree.
But in the meantime, though, this is my issue, though.
Yeah. When
I say the chaos, it's not just like, oh, look at the justice system working. Like, what does that do in the meantime to people when people are getting shipped off? You've seen the videos. People head down in this supermax prison in a foreign country. Like, man, it's scary to think that if it's them today, for any reason, it could be me tomorrow. It could be
you're an American citizen and have rights of an American.
But that's why I said American citizens. So where do you wait for the rogue government to start shipping you out before you say something? Absolutely not. He's shown that he's
they're not rogue by shipping out, by arresting illegals, is what I'm telling you.
But he's doing more than arresting illegals. He's just rounding people up. Even now that the judge said that you can't ship people off like that, they just rounding folks up just because they are sitting in the parking lot. That is not right, man. That's racial profiling.
Well, if they can't,
they just swoop in and just grab folks. I know people that I've hired as day laborers.
Mm-hmm.
He had his own business. He was born here. His daddy was born here. But he sits out there and looks for work when he's in between jobs. So that's not an uncommon thing to do. My point is there are laws and processes that should ensure that people are treated fairly, whether it's one people or 1,000 people.
Okay, so
and
let me
that's
ask you
what
this.
separates us from Venezuela, from North Korea, from Russia, because we don't get treated where we wasn't getting treated that way.
Well, let me ask you this.
I agree with that.
I mean, I can get there. Let me ask you this. Let's say we're all sitting in a trap house. Okay. And somebody's selling heroin out of it. But we're there. And they raid that thing. Are they throwing us all in cuffs or not?
If they feel the need to.
Okay.
But everything don't happen that way. Yeah.
But so if you're where there are a bunch of illegals and you happen to not be one and they raid it. Now, if you weren't doing it and you went to jail, should you say, hey, I wasn't here, and they should let you go and you should go through your process and then your rights should be you should get your rights? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the same thing would happen if you're here and then you're raided. It's the same thing. If they came in and raided this place because we didn't know Joe's been selling nerds to everybody, whatever that's illegal. Next thing you know, we're associated with him. We've got we still have our rights, but they're going to take us in. They're going to question us.
I reject that, because people sitting in the Home Depot parking lot looking for work is not illegal. There's not anything wrong with that.
Well, a lot of times there's no loitering signs, so technically.
The what? But that's a civil matter that the store should take up with.
I'm just
officials, not not ICE coming in with masks and guns, raiding, just massing people off. Like, come on, man.
Like even loitering, you just get ticket though.
Yeah,
right. I'm just saying.
So this overarm,
we keep
this big.
Just saying there are laws, and you said you wanted order and you wanted to follow the laws. But either we're going to follow them or we're not.
But that's not following the laws. Loitering, if the store has to call and initiate that. And obviously Home Depot is
not just rolling up. Yeah. And I get it, but I'm just making the point. And where does
even at schools, like, where's the decency and the basic human being and being a human?
How many schools have been raided lately?
Man, there you keep saying how many. If it's one, my thing that you set a precedence.
It's easy to make up this pie in the sky deal, though, and say, well, what about this? Well, okay, well, where did that happen?
Gosh, man, look on the news. What you told me there, look it up.
Okay.
And I would ask you what Joe told me last time we was together. Okay. Look at more than one news source. Look at somebody that don't agree with you and follow them and understand that there's stuff's going on out there. My point is this: treating people with dignity and respect. And one, it has to happen with the people that are in power. Right. Because it's not just you coming and arresting somebody and you pledged your innocence and you got out and you go and live your life happily ever after. These people are getting tortured. They're losing jobs. They're fearful. The kids are seeing it. They're disrupting entire school events. People are scared now to even get out there and work out of fear. I'm talking about legal people that are here legally.
Right.
That are scared to get out there and work.
Like if you're an Hispanic guy, you're like, well, I don't want to get it up.
Yeah.
And I think everyone, I feel like it's too fast and it's too loose. I remember, to go back to like,
what you mean too fast and loose? What you mean by that?
Just being it seems too fast and loose.
But it's intentional though.
Well, I'm not saying it's not.
I'm just saying, but that add context to the thing is like this. So that was the point I was making. Like, this is not like, hey, we made a mistake.
Yeah.
This is happening intentionally.
Yeah, well, let's go back to how he ran. So he campaigned on closing up the border, and he clearly said mass deportations while he's running. 77 million people still voted for him. And you just take that information and do whatever you got to do with it. When I heard him say the border, I was like, okay, he tightens up the border. People probably gonna like him. Like that's something more doable. But like when even the moment he said mass deportations, I thought in my head originally, I was like, damn, that's gonna be crazy hard to do. Anyway, we can argue. Impossible. Yeah, we can argue merit. We can argue all that stuff. I'm just talking about like, damn, how exactly
you can't.
Yeah, and so then, but now he's promised mass deportations, and But
now when you see what that means and looks like,
it's a little different. It's definitely different. And I think there are people that are seeing it differently.
There are definitely people having buyer's remorse over that.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So we get to the riot part of it, like it's a peaceful protest. Shit starts catching on fire. What do you feel about protests that escalate? And then, like I said, there could be 1,000 factors. Like you got to question the organicness of it. Like who is lighting shit on fire? Like is it really the people out there that want change? What?
Can I go back to this school question real quick before we move forward?
Yeah. I mean,
What
if
school
everybody's
question?
good, if y'all want to say that on stat.
I want to get into the riots, man.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do it.
So I asked Grok, which is AI. So it says it read 68 posts across the internet. It says there's no definitive evidence that the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has conducted raids inside schools in 2025. However, the administration's decision in January 2025 to rescind longstanding policy that ICE can't has happened. So they haven't done it, but you are correct in that they've rescinded the policy that they could.
It didn't say that it hadn't. It just said that
it says there's no evidence.
No evidence, but that's based off of however they collect the data. I'll show you a video if you want that shows where real time is happening and they lock the school down next door.
Well, it says on April 7th, 2025, federal agents, possibly ICE. So maybe they're taking the definition because they're not ICE agents. Maybe that's the caveat.
But regardless if it's ICE or...
did try to enter Los Angeles elementary schools to contact 5 students without authorization.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was attempted in 2 schools in Los Angeles for 5 people.
But even that's not an exhaustive source either, though, right?
Grok, I mean,
it's only as good as the information, ability to collect information and how good people put it in. Because
I mean, if we're arguing with AI, I don't have time for all that.
Yeah, I mean, rural schools, it's dependent on people putting information in, is what I'm saying.
Well, news sources generally is what it's searching.
Yeah, but that's my point, though. What if what if it hasn't been entered? What if they don't have a website or a thing where everything is put out there?
If some butts were candies and nuts, we'd have Christmas.
So my point then, so you can't say that that's an exhaustive source, as if that's
you can't say it's not.
My point.
It searched the entire internet.
But that's my point. Based off his abilities, is AI limited?
Yeah, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. But I don't want to exhaust that because that's
right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole. We can get into why how the Terminator is going to take over.
Let's not get stuck there.
Yeah,
let's not get stuck.
All right, let's go with the riots. That was a good point you were making. I forgot.
I was.
You wanted to get into the riots.
Are they organic? What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts about that? When is there ever a point to you where it's like, okay, it's okay to start setting shit on fire?
No.
That's his answer. What's your answer?
No. Should you? Should you do it? No.
Will people do it?
Will people do it? Yeah.
They're gonna.
And so this is one of those multifaceted, discussions for me.
Right.
It's unfortunate, I used to tell Mama, "Hey, Mama, I ain't gonna do," and I didn't do it until she beat my butt.
Yeah.
And my point to say that is this: I hate when property is destroyed, but I hate people mistreated more. So when I look at it and I'm saying, what can we do? What can we do? We can bring a heavy hand and, stamp out riots. We can show the ability to do it. We got the weapons, the overwhelming manpower, and the will to do it. I would like to stop that from happening, the riots, but I also want to say, what's causing this? And say, what, the why behind the what needs to be addressed as heavily too. And that's why I'm saying, what is going on that's causing these people to steal, in another situation? Why are you stealing from the store? And I'm hungry. Why are you hungry? My mama didn't got a job. And that's why police got the ability to say, and you've seen beautiful stories out there where they go and bought single mom groceries and stuff like that. When they had the right to do whatever they wanted to do, but they didn't, they were like, man, I'm sympathetic to what's causing the emotional distress. Hey, you can't be out here stealing these people's stuff.
Yeah, breaking in the Apple store,
So there's people. So let's talk about those folks.
There's people. There's the Nike stores, Apple store, and then even mom and pop stores. You're hurting your community.
You're hurting your community at that point.
But what often happens is those stores take over for the issue that's really at hand. And now we're talking about people breaking in Apple stores versus some people that's out here protesting because their uncle that they haven't seen in a month. Right. And man, I've talked to the police. I talked to the detectives. I wrote my congressman. I did all this stuff and nothing has happened.
Right.
Now people are turning to protesting, which is a basic fundamental right and a necessity. And I think a need to keep the government
right is
from
the right
going
to peacefully assemble.
My point. Exactly. Yeah, we can define it if you need to.
Yeah,
but my point is, what they're doing is right, but that's been overshadowed by
the cars on fire and shit.
Yeah, but it's intentional though.
I believe that.
Yeah, a lot of times it's intentional. Some people rather focus on that to make it look like that's all that's going on out there because it takes the focus off of what's going on. There is overwhelmingly people peacefully protesting. If there are 10,000 people in LA, there's not 10,000 anarchists throwing bricks and breaking in stores.
Oh, no doubt.
There are a lot of people out there doing the right thing.
Right.
Yeah. And they're obeying the curfews. Yeah. They're going home, they're going to work, and when they get off work, because I know some of them that are doing it. And they started again the next day.
What do you think about blocking roads and stuff? Technically, that's a peaceful protest, but that's you're harming your community big time. Like well,
it's not orderly anymore.
Yeah. So like if I can't get to work because there was a protest, or if I get
anything other than what's outlined and what they should be doing, I think. But sometimes
can we get a definition of like the rules of a peaceful protest?
Yeah. So there's no one that's different from.
Oh, is it statewide? Is that a
some of them based on the First Amendment? You have the right of assembly,
and it's where you located.
Right.
You know, you can't, and then they can always declare a certain area as a no gathering place.
If you got public property, you can be there.
Well, by law, you can't.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I mean, even if you wanted to say, hey, I don't think if you're in a park and they're, hey, you got to go, but you're growing. Okay, this public park. As long as you're not killing people, you know what I mean?
Well,
but I mean, I'm with you.
The decision makers come in, and that's what the law allows. And again, there's not all the time just to disrupt what they're doing. Sometimes to protect people because they know these people have evidence and intelligence that come in and say they know sometimes when these anarchists are coming in to tear crap up.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what keeps people from doing it. So that's what one of the biggest arguments with the LA part. It's just like, hey, we didn't need the National Guard, and we don't need the Marines to come in to do what we got. 9,000 police in the city of LA, city police. You got countless other sheriffs and other neighboring police. That's part of the protocol of escalation if things get out of hand. Right. So now, when you're talking about agitating and creating more chaos than necessary, which is part of the reason that we are here where we are today, but to protest, the municipalities, the governing authorities, they do have the rules to limit. And, you know, a lot of times it's like keep moving, or they can create a no assembly area. And a lot of times it's for the protection of the people, not just, you know, just to be ugly and not let them assemble.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you know that there is this threat level and you know this is the deal, like you have the right to assemble, but like it seems like it may not be the smartest thing to assemble once stuff starts escalating. What do you think about that? Or what do y'all think? I'm not just sitting over here asking you.
That's
you
a
know
good question
what I'm saying?
too.
Well, here's kind of my thought, because I agree, right? If you're going to peacefully assemble and you're going to protest, we've got that right. We're Americans. You have the right to do that. And you're also right. Anarchists come in and really mess it up and really deviate, take attention away from the point being made, you know, and that's not good. And so now also, you know, you talk about the National Guard stuff. There were stores being broken into and cars on fire before the National Guard was ever sent. That's what the National Guard sent. There were stand-down orders given to the Sheriff's Department of LA.
That's why they were sent?
Yeah, after they were, well, I don't know why they were sent, but they were sent after control had been lost. The National Guard was sent, but they were already on fire and all that stuff. But so that does take away from, hey, I'm mad about what's happening. I'm going to stand out here with my sign with 10,000 of my boys and we're going to talk about it. You can do that. However, once you throw a brick through a, you know, and even whoever, because look, there was somebody that paid to have all those bricks delivered there. Whoever it was, that person, I think that person should get in trouble too, because they're trying to instigate the riot. Oh, yeah. You know, and look, you know, even with a bunch of little kids, right? One's going to be over here being good, two can be good. Then you got this third one. Now, maybe one of them, you know, you got to find that one that's not going to be good and stop them from generating a buzz. Because then once you get that group mentality, that's the problem. But I'm all for, if you got a problem, do your protest. But once you start throwing bricks and burning cars,
I just think we got to be careful about equating that everybody's out there doing the same thing.
That's right.
So I think a point I want to make, right? If so, for this is why I think we all agree we got to keep getting our news from different places, because the right's spinning it in a way that says it's out of control. It's too crazy. It's too far gone. This action is justified. The left probably the other way. No. It's peaceful. It's peaceful. It's peaceful.
Did you hear the government? Did you hear the governor and the mayor what they said?
Yeah.
The police chief?
But they hate Trump. Trump hates them. So
but regardless,
probably an underlying.
Even if though the ability to put out the information that needs to be and to speak against what needs to be speak is effective. They're strong against anarchists, and they're telling people like, we don't want you here.
Right.
And if you get caught, we're going to arrest you.
Right.
So that's happening.
Right.
Regardless of if I hate Trump, that has nothing to do with me policing my city.
Well, I'm just saying that there's that. Well, there's the political side of it is also an angle. But saying
isn't that our need as individuals to be able to see through if we want to be involved?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the point I'm making is that if you just look at one place, you're going to get it's all peaceful. You're going to look at the other way. You're going to get that every building in Los Angeles is on fire.
Yeah,
and so because both whether it's a news channel or both or whether it's a governor or president, they all have their agendas. They need their wins. Everybody needs this
or limitations.
Limitations. And so what you gotta but see, this is what happened. We can sit here and talk for 3 hours and learn a bunch of shit, right? You know what I mean? But the average person isn't. They're getting a TikTok video. Mm. The whole city's on fire.
But I don't want you to discount your reach. But man, you're reaching people, man.
Yeah.
And you're doing a lot of good with this. And man, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it and make people pause and slow down and think.
Yeah. And that's why I think that we got to keep on speaking about it, doing that. But I'm just saying we have to realize that every piece of this LA riot deal is more than likely getting spun some way. And so we just have
100%.
We have to be ready to, like you said, like you're saying, it's our responsibility that a lot of people don't really care about to actually figure out what it is. Because you can get polarized quick. And then my team says it's on fire. My team says it ain't on fire. And then
but even
it's more than likely
doing
somewhere in the middle.
A good heart and doing all the due diligence that we can is still limited on what I know.
Right.
Because I'm not there seeing it. And, and it's 20-second sound bites.
And that's what I'm glad to have stuff like X and other things where you can go get different views of different people posting like, here's what I see, here's what I see, and
but that's even limited based off of what they're showing you. That's what I'm saying.
Right,
like there's a lot.
So they'll try to red pill me sometimes, like X will, or even blue pill me the other way. I'll just go type in Republican. And if I'm getting blue pilled, I'll go type in Republican. So I'm like, okay, well, let me shake this algorithm because the algorithm will try to feed me.
Do you believe that there are Russian ops out there feeding us this information?
Russians, probably.
I believe there's Russian, Chinese.
I believe there's whole AI accounts run by other countries.
Well, but the reason why I named those two countries because their ability is not just some little dude sitting in the basement of his mom.
No, it's bigger than that.
Yeah, it's pumps of millions, if not more, dollars in, and the know-how, the psychology behind it to
And this isn't even something we're talking about, but to your point, the whole green environment thing, right? It's been proven that China funded a lot of the protest organizations that wanted to go green. The companies in China that did that were the same ones that sold the materials to the solar power. Right. I believe that they're because they want you to buy their products. So, if they're doing it for that, they're doing it for how many other things? At the
same time, that don't take away the legitimacy of the programs either because somebody's abusing it. So that's what I'm saying. There's so many moving parts. And if we get so emotionally attached to that we can't see the forest because of the trees in front of us. Yeah. And the thing is what we were saying earlier, like, man, we got to know our limitations. Mm-hmm. We're not Superman. We can't save the world. And I think for me, I found a lane that I operate in. And I try to be as diligent and as professional and as considerate and as patient as I can in there so I can talk to it from a point that where, hey, even if I get it wrong, I can pivot and admit it.
Right.
And even if I feel strongly against somebody, when they do something right, I can admit it. That kind of thing right there. Yeah. And I know earlier you said that I was leaning left. I'm more conservative than most people think.
Right.
But the thing is, I always say this, man, I treat everybody with dignity and respect. How I feel is different from how everybody else feels. And my thoughts are not superior to anybody else. And how they feel they need to handle a situation. Now, a lot of it is based off of my upbringing. Some of it is based off my religion. A lot of it is based off my skin color. A lot of my military service. There's a lot of things that influence how I believe and think and move. Right. But I got to also remember that everything that affected me or influences me might be totally different from you. And you could be just as convicted about them.
Right.
My thing is,
for sure.
everything don't have to be an either or. We can coexist. These different opinions don't have to be an either or. They can be in place at the same time, serving the purpose of everybody. That's why I love the history of this nation, aside from the obvious things. It's when they tried to get it right. They poured the resources in. They sent the professionals in to learn and retrain. When I did EO, I told you, man, it was like every 3 months I was giving training. And it wasn't just, check the box training. I'm figuring out like what's unique to my unit. We got a bunch of senior leaders here. Hey, man, it's hard, but I got to do the same thing. So now I'm inspecting what's going on. I'm doing retraining, remedial training when needed. And unfortunate circumstances where people violate the program, we're doing UCMJ action.
Right.
But that's what a robust program do. And you have to have that. Once you start dismantling those things and let people run rogue and do what they want to do, it's bad. I was told you I was in Moline, Illinois at an EO conference in 2018, 2019, right when I got ready to retire. And we were talking about where's the threat coming in on the EO side in the modern, today's military force. And it was Trump. These are the leaders. We're talking about like, hey, we got to redo this program. We got to pivot. We can't just do what we've been doing like anything. You got to do things based off of where the current threat and the need is.
Right.
And it was like, how do we enforce a program to the soldiers when your chief offender may be the commander in chief and his leaders? And that was one of the hardest things that I ever experienced in my career. And it really drove me to go ahead and drop my paperwork and retire. I was just spent mentally to see people total line, circumvent the process, the process, and I see like what's driving it. And I was like, yeah, it's enough. I called it quits.
Yeah.
One thing you said, you asked earlier what made the country great. The greatest.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you just laid it out. When we look, even retrospectively,
mm-hmm.
and when we come together communally and think about things critically, we're willing to put the resources and to apply the resources to learn and to grow and to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not everyone. There are some one-offs that are just hard to deal with. But I think that's, when I think of the greatness of our country, it's we learn from our past, even if it takes some time. And then we say, okay, we get together and we try to push forward. And so I think that's part of what you were saying there, and on the generalities of it, is part of what I think part of where the greatness comes from. We do learn from it. We are willing to, we're not led by Xi Jinping in China and it has to be this way. Or we're not in North Korea where Kim Jong-il always said that he only played one game of golf ever and he scored a 36, so he never played again, right?
You ain't believe him?
Yeah, right. And he also said he never defecated, right? We don't have to believe that thing. We're allowed to have these conversations,
mm-hmm.
and we're allowed to. And so what you were saying is we're willing to we can put the resources in. Historically and even currently, we don't always agree, but we know that we're allowed to at least work through it. And so that's where I see the greatness.
And that's why I take issue when I say right now, our 50-meter target is what's happening right now. And it's a different, and I wrote these notes earlier and it talks about the things that I thought was part of what contributed in making it great.
Uh-huh.
And, you got the 3 co-equal branches of government.
Yeah.
And then there's the process and freedoms that are just as important. That's what I put, okay. So you got the structure of government, due process, habeas corpus, like that is one of the most unspoken, most important things. It says that you just can't come and arrest me and put me away.
That's right.
And just leave me there. Like you got to publicly state why I'm being arrested, right? You got freedom of speech. And here's a big one, the apolitical military.
Right.
Like, man, you got the strongest fighting force in the world.
Right.
That has to stay apolitical. Because if not,
we could turn into Iran, or you turn
simply quickly, right? You got freedom of religion, the right to assemble and protest, the right to vote, and then the expectation to have free and fair elections, social program. Like there's a lot of stuff
mm-hmm.
that has made this nation great. But those things that I just listed, those are the things that are under attack right now. Like literally.
All that's under attack right now?
Let me read them again.
Yeah.
Let me read them again. And tell me if I'm wrong. Three co-equal branches of government.
I do believe we have a militant judiciary right now that's trying to make law when that's not their job. So you're right.
But that's an equal branch of government. So if they see that the application of the law is not being applied, that's the process. And then you got the appeals court all the way up to the Supreme Court.
And I'm with you.
But it's under attack.
But it's working.
It's for the most part, it is.
But with freedom of speech, you're allowed.
But I'm just saying, is it under attack? Is my point. It is.
Every
when you talk about
always been under
when
attack.
The president says that judges need to be what is it when they try to kick the president out?
Impeached.
And now, and then the Supreme Court came out strongly and was like, hey, we got a long history where that was not the case and we don't need to start that.
Well, yeah, John Roberts said that Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Didn't.
So, but my point is, now they calling these judges rogue because the judge don't agree with their side. But when the judge agree with their side, they're not rogue.
Well, so you're allowed to. The other one is the freedom of speech. You're allowed to say that.
But now that's where my issue with freedom of speech, which is another one. Like there was always done with responsibility.
Well,
and
that's
understanding
not true.
Freedom of speech.
Yes,
I mean
the powers to be were the standard bearers.
What years?
Let's go back to when he said the civil rights.
You can go back before that. Go back to the 1800s and the political cartoons. They were nasty. If you think it's chaotic now?
No, that's not my point. I'm saying when people started to try to be different and they was like, you know what? Yes, we have freedom of speech, but I'm going to try to toe the line. When John McCain was running for office and the people were like, I'm scared of Obama and he's a Muslim. Okay, shut him down. He's like, no. He's a great man that I just have political differences with.
No.
And no, Mitch McConnell, not Mitch McConnell, but
Mitt Romney.
Utah.
Yeah, Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney, same thing. They up there laughing and joking like we can go have, those days are gone. But the thing is, they was like, regardless of how we feel, we're going to treat each other with dignity and respect. And as leaders, we have to be the example because if not, the people that look up to us are no longer going to do the same.
Didn't Alexander Hamilton shoot Aaron Burr in a draw?
Who is that?
Yeah, he was the vice president. They got in a duel out.
When?
Back in I don't know when.
Was it before 1960?
Yeah.
I know it was. I'm just saying. Yeah. So my point is like when I'm just saying when did people start to say like, you know what? We're going to be, yes, we have freedom of speech.
Do you think that we had freedom of speech between 2020 and 2024?
20 and 24. I think it's eroded. My point, so that's the point I'm making. So remember last time we were talking, and you was like when such and such ran, it started. I said, no, man, I can take you back to when
but I'm saying specifically during those years.
I think we have freedom of speech. I'm just saying it's under attack.
Okay, and I agree with that, but I don't think it's just this administration. I mean, they was so hard because I have specific examples between 2020 and 2024.
But that's why I said when
heavy censorship.
1804.
Yeah. Okay. But I'm just saying how it's eroding. And so now, it's not one-off things that are just saying like, hey, because this is happening, it's bad. So that's why I'm giving this list of what I think set this country apart. The freedom of the speech and the responsibility of it is a real thing. And I think it's just eroding and getting worse and worse and worse.
I think with freedom of speech.
But you did say some of these are under attack. And so that's why we're trying to zero in and make sure we understand what you mean
I said
by that.
due process.
Yeah.
Who said it's under attack?
Two citizens. Yeah.
Habeas corpus.
Yeah. Big one.
Freedom of speech, apolitical military. Man,
that's big.
That daggum, hey, what's his name? The Department of Defense Secretary.
I love that guy.
Under attack.
I don't think y'all get
freedom of religion.
No, we're not going to agree on that.
Yeah, that's one of the most.
But that's okay. We don't have to.
One of the most incompetent. Yeah, freedom of religion.
Yeah, why is that under?
Man, what did he say? I want to stop all Muslims. The Jews are under attack. There's a lot.
When did he say he wanted to stop all Muslims?
I ain't gonna lie. When you say something like that, you kind of have to have the quote.
Yeah, look it up real quick. While I read the list.
Gotcha. No problem. That's
Trump said we're going to stop.
That's a big one.
Yeah, he said we're going to stop immigration from all Muslim nations.
Oh, okay. So, but that's different than
stopping all Muslims.
Yeah, you're talking about immigration to Muslim countries, which I don't think is right.
No,
but I'm just saying. But no, you took like the way you said stop.
That,
Was just
who is he didn't say? He didn't say. Who is he targeting?
He was targeting. That was in his first administration. The target was nations that harbored known terrorists. He stopped the flow of immigration from where most of the terrorists in the world came from. He never said anything about religion. And also, they're not citizens, so they don't have the same freedoms that we do.
Regardless of the freedoms, I'm talking about the mindsets and the principles that make this great nation great being under attack. That's what I'm talking about. Right. If we can't agree that was an absolute pivot from the norms, what are we even doing?
Well, I don't think it was a pivot. We'd just been in war for 20 years with a Muslim nation.
Fine.
So
fine.
Get it. Yeah, I'm not saying that's right or wrong.
Right to assemble.
Yeah.
Protest is the right to vote.
How's that under attack?
How's what?
The right to vote.
So there is this thing called gerrymandering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with
North Carolina, South Carolina. There is this one, I can't think of the name of the attorney's office right now.
Gerrymandering is where you draw the political lines to best suit you. I understand what
the best suit a party, yeah.
To best suit whoever drew them. Yeah. Which both political parties take part in.
But it's a process. And then when you take it up to court and then the Supreme Court tell you that you're wrong and you need to redraw your lines and then you don't do it, it's under attack. So that's the point I'm making. So I'm naming these things and maybe you're not privy to see it or just didn't know that it's happened. And
I know I'm just saying that.
But did you know that happened?
With the Supreme Court case on the redrawing
in Alabama and North Carolina and Louisiana?
They were ordered to redraw their districts.
And then did you know that they refused it?
Vote.
But that affects voting is my point. So when I'm talking about free and fair elections and the right to vote, isn't that all tied in there? Because
we could get into that because I think what I think they should do is just lay it out by square mile. This square mile, and you shouldn't have all these districts because these districts are because like Pat Fallon has the Army district, then it goes almost to Denton, right? His district's crazy.
So what's going to happen to Cass County,
right?
If we just do it by square miles,
well, they're going to be by population. So 740,000 people, you get this amount of space, and where you're 740,000,
but it's not square miles; it's people.
Right, 740 every 40,000.
But I don't mind it being redrawn based off the population move, but it needs to be representative. So Mississippi, Jackson, one of the biggest black populations in this country, they don't have representation
because of how it's been drawn.
Yeah, and when they
I don't agree with that on either side. Yeah. No, I don't agree with gerrymandering.
Yeah,
gerrymandering is what I'm saying.
So there's just regardless. But my
that's
point
not
is,
the attack against voting. Vote for somebody who will do it correctly.
Okay. And free and fair elections and then the social programs. You know what they did to Social Security? Since by law he couldn't cut it, what did he do? Close down some offices.
Hasn't affected benefits.
So here's the thing. If you can't get in, if you got to update, because they took down the 800 number too. Right. So you got to go to an office. So just say, I heard that they closed down the Texas County office. I don't know the
there are 5 buildings. They were closed. One of them was on the Arkansas side.
So just imagine you can't come here. Now I got to drive 3 hours.
Well, that's not the case. There was another one.
Let me make an example, please. Okay, yeah, because I want you to understand.
We'll make examples. I just want it to be factual.
Yeah. Let me make the example. And then you argue the merits of it, please. Okay, but not the...
Sounds good.
So if I got to drive, because these are real stories where somebody had to get his niece to drive in 3 hours to another one because the local office closed.
Yeah.
He was in a rural area and the one that was closest was closed, so they drove to another one. By the time he got there, it was 4:00 and the line was out of the door and he couldn't get there. He lose his benefits because you don't get to say, well, I'll get there if it's May the 30th. I didn't get there. And now it's June the 5th. I do get to get there. I don't get to refile and claim that money that I lost. It's gone. That money is gone. So now that's their way of circumventing the Congress and saying like, hey, we know how to save money on Social Security. And that was strategic. Like, why would you, disabled and our seniors depend on that program? And here we are now, and they're wondering if they're going to be able to pay their bills. Now, one of the Trump guys, he was like, you know what? These people that are whining are the fraudsters because he's a billionaire. But he said, when my mother-in-law don't get her check, she don't panic. She just wait and let them figure it out and wait for it next month.
Well, it's like furlough pay, right?
But yeah, she got a billionaire son-in-law. She didn't need anything.
It's easy to blame the billionaires, but I get it. So you could be worried about the closing of the offices. However,
what you mean worried? What you mean?
I could see how you could be, I'm not going to be able to get there because of the office. I see that could be a problem. So I'm acknowledging that, if that did happen for that one person, that's not good. However, in our area here in Texarkana, there are multiple offices, and we have the T line that gets you close to it. So you have the availability to get to it. For that person, that's not good, though.
But did you know it happened?
I didn't know that happened.
So that goes back to your point. Let's make sure we're looking at,
that's not good.
Sometimes you don't even know what you don't know. And I'm talking about me now.
Yeah,
you don't even know what you don't know.
No, if I didn't know that happened, and that sucks. All right, that's not good. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and you know, the words is, they say that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. I'm like, what?
Well, Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, but I'm for people getting their benefits. But 100%, if any business operated the way that Social Security did, people would go to prison.
These people, they'll go to prison. What you mean?
The people that, if somebody ran their business like Social Security runs, because the money we pay in Social Security, we're not going to get. It's paying for the current Social Security.
But that's how it was set up.
No, not originally. They should have. You're supposed to be getting the money that you paid in, but our government, and this isn't.
But when it started,
took those funds and wasted them. So the money that, let's say, my grandma, if she got a check when she was alive, the money that she paid in has been spent years ago. So now it's dependent upon your payment and my payment and Joe's payment to keep that alive.
And then when we get there, so my point is, again, programs that are not perfect.
Yeah, it's not perfect.
Let's correct them. But what he was doing was not about correcting a program that needed to be better. He pandered and put out false information, talked about, hey, there are people that are such and such age getting Social Security benefits.
Are you talking about like the 120-year-old people?
And then when they look at it, they say that there's programs put in place to stop it.
Well, there were.
But if there are,
a lot of people,
audits should find it, and if not, hey, that's what audits are for.
Yeah, let's correct that.
Yeah, that's how you correct the stuff. It's not let's just go and make it hard for people to, because I don't like because he's a billionaire who don't need it. And that's what I'm talking about, the out of touch stuff. Like, he has paid in his benefits. They said, Elon Musk, 15 minutes in the January, he's paid what he needs to pay for the rest of the year.
That doesn't matter. What he's able to pay shouldn't.
It does matter.
When is it fair on how much to take?
Let me tell you why it matters. Because he's making the decision, so you need to be in touch with the people. Here's the thing, if I can't relate to a situation, let me get boots on the ground and ask you, like, hey.
Do you know how many jobs? I mean, it doesn't matter how many jobs Elon creates. But what? So that goes back to the question I asked hours ago. Mm-hmm. How much is the right amount for somebody to pay then?
Okay, let's not go there yet until we say this.
But you just said Elon paid it in 15 minutes, so I need to know what the right amount is.
I'm saying it makes him out of touch. That's why.
He can be out of touch. That's okay.
So now if you're out of touch and you're supposed to be a leader, I found issue with that. If I'm the leader and I'm making decisions that's supposed to better this country, let me figure out what the issue is.
It wasn't Elon's job to make the decision. He was we did elect someone. We did elect someone that said they would use Elon, and
these were Elon's decisions.
Well, he didn't. He was asked to do that by the guy we elected.
So back to my point, if he's out of touch, how good of a leader are you?
But I mean, how many politicians in general are not out of touch? A lot of the
How many have come and closed Social Security?
Well,
maybe so.
Can we not agree?
Answer that though. Answer that.
Can we not agree that there's Social Security, that there's fraud in Social Security? But we just said that, so we don't even got to say it again. My point is that it was waste was not the issue. Waste was 100% the issue.
That's not why he cut it, because there's waste.
Why do you think he cut it?
Because if he did it, he would have got in the weeds, got the professionals in. He would not have cut off the inspector generals that oversee these programs. He would have got them in there and just like, hey, what's going on? And he wouldn't have put out false information about what was really going on.
He putting out?
What's the one we just said about these 120-year-old?
No, that turned out to be true.
Man, let me finish the statement so you can understand fully. Okay. If it's 120-year-old people that's out there, how much is it happening, and what can we do to stop it without hurting people that need it?
Right. It was millions of dollars a month to people over 100 years old.
So let's figure out how to stop it without hurting people that need it.
Right. The one example you gave that I didn't know of, that's not
But
good.
It's not just a one-off. And my point is the spirit behind what he's did. No one goes in and just shuts down entire offices and buildings. And here's the other thing, because if it was under the guise of saving $3 trillion that went down to $1 trillion, that went down to $800 billion, that end up being $160 million that they end up saving. Right. It was a failure. And the thing is, the people that hurt in between people that lost their jobs, people that got fired or signed on these agreements when they thought that they was going to be able to get unemployment benefits, but they couldn't because they got tricked into signing these performance-based terminations. Hey, you sign this and you get these benefits, or you don't and you don't get any benefits. Well, let me sign. So all the chaos that got created in between there, that's what I'm saying. This was not an efficient and right way to come in and examine these programs and do better. Because guess what? I think we all should say, like, if you can run it better, let's run it better. But that's not.
I can agree with that. I think we're conflating. Go ahead.
Let me read this. ChatGPT's. This is the when it wraps everything up. It says no. Musk claims about widespread fraud involving debt or ghost recipients, whether Social Security or federal payroll, do not hold up under scrutiny.
Okay, there you go.
And so it seems to think that was just a claim.
But it's not just that it happened. I'd like to understand the why. A lot of these departments that he got rid of was the one that was investigating him. Department of Transportation, FAA.
Once again, he didn't get rid of them. Though. He was asked to.
I mean, all he could do is put it. What he's saying is like you can definitely disagree with it.
He
but
fired
like,
these people, man.
Well, he didn't. He couldn't fire him. He
had no authority.
He couldn't. Like Elon did.
Did he order it to happen?
No, he can't. But all he could do is say.
You can say Donald Trump ordered it on his advice.
But under who guys though? But if you hire me to
as an advisor, it would still be my fault.
If you hire me to cut your grass, yes, I'm saying.
But no, but you're not the advisor to cut my grass.
No, let me finish one. If you hire me to cut it,
right,
and I come in with these with a crew.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it, and they did it because I told them to do it. It's me.
Well, they didn't hire him to do anything because he didn't get paid. He was an advisor.
Because that's the scheme. You know, if he had stayed more than 120 days, then he would have had to go through confirmation. If he go through confirmation, then they're going to see all these conflicts of interest because his businesses provide services to the government. All that stuff, that's what I'm saying. If you don't know all this stuff, then you're absent of a lot of information that makes you give you better insight of why some of this stuff happened.
Do you think they fell out on purpose?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think it was on purpose.
You think they fell out?
Elon and Trump.
Yeah. Because wouldn't that play out so that he would leave before he got, whatchamacallit?
Well, he was already leaving.
Well, he was already leaving.
He was leaving.
He was right. Yeah,
I think they fell out because that's what...
Well, two most powerful men in the world. That's some ego.
It ran its purpose. It didn't just happen that day. That was already in plan.
But my original
Elon was collecting information on Trump the whole time because just in case he needed it. I believe it.
I mean, if there was going to be information on Trump, they'd already have it. I mean, he's most investigated.
But I'm just saying he's gonna collect and see what he can use to his advantage.
But back to my original question was, how much is too much for that guy to pay in taxes?
I don't know.
Because that's where you keep going back. At some point,
you're focusing on the point I'm not trying to make. I'm not trying to
I'm focusing on that because that led to this whole conversation of, well, Elon could have covered this in 15 minutes. Well, okay. How much is too much?
But my point of making that was to show how out of touch you are to people that it goes on every year.
I get what both of you are saying.
Yeah, but he's arguing a point I'm not making is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's not what I wouldn't even argue.
He's just saying he's out of touch. Yeah. You're saying
so on that point, I voted for Donald Trump, me and 77 million other people, because we knew he was going to make these cuts, because I wanted the cuts to the administration of the Social Security. I wanted that to happen. I want there to be cuts to our government because we're $37 trillion in debt and we can't.
So what happened to the Department of Defense who haven't passed 7 audits in a row?
Okay, and so
that's just terrible.
That's horrible.
But it's nothing new, right? You've been in on, you've seen what we do.
And I'm not. So I'm with you. Yeah. So then let's take that from a local perspective, because I called some flack on this. Yeah, can't pass an audit. So then it comes down through the chain that they're looking at closing Red River Army Depot. Okay, so I came out and said, hey, I'm for this if they're not efficient.
Yeah.
So, well, hold on. So if we're for this and we want to trim this down and we want to be able to pass audits, let's do that. But now when it affects our town, our community, everybody's against it. Oh, I voted for it, but I want it to happen somewhere else.
Yeah.
No. I want this to happen en masse. We need to cut it to where it's fair to save us money.
I'm going to take that fair out of it.
Well, it doesn't even have to be fair. Yeah. You're right. Let's cut this so that it's where it should be. And then that's what Hegseth said he would do, which is why I like that.
Hegseth didn't cut. Okay. Hey, let's just say, I'm just going to say this and we can move on because I know time is
we're at 3 hours. Bro.
Oh, yeah, we better.
We're at 3 hours. But it's been good.
Trimming the government down, let's say trimming the fat. That's not what this was about. And if if we can't agree with that, I'm going to say what I said earlier.
It gets harder to believe it because we have every opportunity to do it this time around, especially with the Republicans having all the different deals.
And they're not going to do it.
And they're not going to do it. And so that does make me think that something else is.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't have to guess what it is though, because the evidence is out there that state what they was up to.
What is that?
Well, I said earlier, some of the ones he cut initially was
you
the
think
inspector generals, people that was investigating his companies because, the wrecks he had with the vehicle.
Oh, you back Starlight. To Elon.
Yeah. So Elon, it goes back to when he donated money to Trump. Trump was dang near broke, cash-wise. Elon pumped a lot of money through the election.
I mean, same thing that you said about George Soros and the Democrats, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but he pumped the money in there. Trump brought him on as this advisor and something that he's totally, not saying that he's not capable of doing, but I don't think he have an interest in doing it the right way because he would have had to leave in those inspector generals that was already investigating his companies. Now, what does he do? He ended up on the lawn of the White House, Trump promoting Tesla, hoping that it was going to boost his company again, which it didn't happen.
But I think that was to counteract Tesla's getting keyed and destroyed.
Yeah, but that's not true. It's illegal. You're not supposed to use this position to do those things.
Right. And
that's why it's illegal. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. All these things that you just say, like, I'm not worried about what the law say. I can do what I want to do when I want to do it because I'm the president and who's going to check me? That's the mindset that he has going in through this stuff. And that's why so many things are in the courts and a lot of them are getting pushed back. Some of them not. And the other thing, though, but the other branch of government that's supposed to check him, they just went away.
Yeah.
They went away.
Yeah, we're just not going to agree on that, so that's okay.
But it's the truth. It's the truth. They like bring in Elon so we can, he needs to be subpoenaed and come in and answer questions in front of the committee.
I'm okay if they do that.
But he wouldn't. They wouldn't order him to. And then when they even asked him to,
so then that's when we got to get back to the election. We got to vote for somebody who.
But let's go back before you go back to the election and acknowledge like that's an issue if that's happening. And that's what is happening.
Well, that happened. If that's what happens, that's bad. I don't think that's what's happening. Number one, but that's what
you're
happens.
saying truth though, but like there's speculation too. There. There's speculation there. Like
because the same thing.
Speculation about what?
Draw
speculation about
what feels like logical conclusions, but that doesn't mean that they are 100% true.
Oh,
that's
okay. I see what you're
speculation.
saying. Hey,
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that there could be.
But
things
that's what investigations are for, so we can figure it out. So we won't even do the things that we've been doing.
You're saying there needs
from
to be
years
one,
and years and years and years, and they won't do it.
No.
What else can you draw from that? I mean, you're literally dropping the ball on your duties.
Yeah, but I think that isn't just a Trump Elon thing.
No, I think that's just a way to deal.
I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah. But all today
we're here today to talk about
today, but also that's one thing we haven't been able to really do today is go back and talk about.
Let's do it. How long? We got 10 minutes. Let's do it.
10 minutes.
Let's do it.
I mean, there's things that Biden should probably be under investigation about. There's the
if you wanted to go into some of that, so there's the whole Solyndra.
Can you hide having stage 4 cancer?
Yeah, they hid that.
Is that legal?
He came
for
out,
us to not know that our president had that. They didn't get that overnight.
He came out in 2022 and said people have cancer like me, and they're like, "Oh no, he doesn't."
Yeah.
But I do feel like this is relevant, and I don't want to take away from your point. I'm getting it.
Yeah, I get it. I get that concern. For me, I'm just saying, that's low hanging fruit at this point. Is it an issue? Absolutely. Can we address it? Can we walk and chew bubble gum at the same time?
I think I disagree though. Like respectfully, I think I disagree.
Tell me why.
Because you're laying out this thing on Trump, and I'm not a Trump fan, so more power to it. Yeah, let's do it. But like we haven't been able to like get, and I think that it is important to talk about like the stuff before.
Yes, but I think from the standpoint, so it don't happen again, instead of investigating when he got cancer, let's say like, hey, which they're starting to do now. They start talking again about age limits and transparency in medical and all that stuff right there. That's, I think,
why does it go away? How is that low hanging fruit?
It's not going away. I'm just saying what happened with Biden versus does there need to be term limits because of the health of people?
And I agree.
That's what I think. I think. Well, not term limits, age limits. Should there be age limits and should there be term limits?
Yeah.
As far as our congressman? for certain.
Yeah, for sure. They're defending.
Now, I've got friends that don't agree with it. They're like, we have them. I
think there's an argument on both sides that's legitimate. Yeah. You know, you get some people that understand the institution. They've been there for years, and in some way or fashion, they do hold it together. Now, I think it could be a detriment because it doesn't allow space for new ideas that come in because much of people, especially on the right, hate to hear, we are a progressive society.
No.
You know, if you're going to be representative of your people,
well, what are we progressing to?
Is what the people want.
No.
Well, we're also a nation of laws, so that's why we can't progress away from the Constitution.
But or pass laws to change them.
That's right. We do that.
Yeah, but that's reflective of the voting bloc. Right. So we progress towards the will of the people to a certain degree. I think government still needs to protect the people from the people.
Right. But what I'm saying is, I kind of go back to it here at the end, is that you've painted this picture, and I appreciate it, right? Because we need to be challenged. The big picture that Trump's evil and Elon's evil, and that there is this, you've called truth, I call it.
Can I expound on that before you go to your point?
Because
that's just them. I think government, and the point that he made earlier, as a whole, like it's left unchecked. And these people out here just bankrolling it and just doing what they can. So I don't think it's just Trump. That was just what I came here to speak. So I just want to add clarity. I don't think that, it's only them and everybody else. No.
And I get that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying the whole thing, you're saying that these things are under attack and these things are under attack. But like every time we've tried to point to like an older time where we thought, like even recent, because I don't think 2020 to 2024 is old to me. Even though it's been 100 days, he's still in. That shit matters to me. Like that shit really matters to me.
It should.
Like a lot. Yeah. And I was hoping that we could get more into it. But it's all right.
Let's do it online next time. We can do one online, man.
Oh,
yeah. We can go, yeah. Because I want you to talk about Biden, and then we could show how I think greater change is needed, even beyond. Because what's happened over in the past is what led up to this. Yeah. And I think people fell asleep, I said, with immigration. People fell asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, there's something.
I mean, I think they did on purpose.
I think there's COVID. I think there's a whole bunch of things that was so crazy. But it's like we can't talk about all this stuff.
That's why I was like, man, I didn't want to get too far to where we talk about a lot of nothing. That's what I was saying. I was
think
like,
we covered some good stuff.
No, it was good. It was good. I just think like like I said, it's been bad too. Mm-hmm. It's been real bad too. And and people were just as fired up as you are about Trump. They were fired up logically in ways that felt logical to them about Biden too. And but we just didn't have time to get there.
But I think a difference is that the processes were in place to keep people in check. Well, and it might have been slow, but it wasn't out